Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Rob H., Ben White, Maximum Gravy, Austin Whitsit, John Kays, Tommy Swagnuts, Michael Kahn, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Samson, Maris, Hairy Blade, Mobile Mac 777, Neo the One, Lostcat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Go ahead.
Hey, John. Hey, John, can you hear us?
Crazy.
Give me a minute, just a quick sound check, and then whatever you were saying, Neil.
Hey, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Very nice indeed.
I was just thinking about you this morning, John. Isn't that something?
What'd I do?
Just wondering where you've been. Anyway, back to this launch. I've been hearing how flat Earth it's only little by little they're doing these things. Having the last laugh. They return to the moon, and then they go on other journeys and colonize other planets. Same nonsense.
Tales from the Sky Vacuum. We're going to have to keep this conversation going. There's literally no one else here.
Well, wouldn't
well,
they
that's
need the first planet before they could colonize any more planets? They need the first planet, right?
Well, they were saying they got a lot of stuff from Mars. They got a lot of information from Mars. They're knowing now that they could make a stronger substance than concrete with the blood of humans and the dust of Mars.
What the fuck?
They know all these things.
Come again. Sorry, I'm not kind of just to check there. The blood of what now makes strong concrete?
Stronger than concrete. You didn't hear that? I told you that a few weeks ago. The human blood and the dust of Mars makes a stronger substance than concrete.
Dust of Mars. There is no dust of Mars. Mars is a light in the sky.
I agree. I'm just reiterating what they say.
Well,
I'd like to know how they found all this out.
Well, they first got to have a sphere-shaped Earth with a sphere-shaped moon moving around it, and both of those moving around a sphere-shaped sun in a heliocentric system, for them to then go on to assert that any of the things I've just stated are actually true. Well, no, that's a begging the question fallacy that has to be stated beforehand. But further to that assumption, i.e. we're moving around the sun, the moon's moving around us as a sphere, is that you've got further spheres that are like that sphere that you've just described, Well, Mars isn't a sphere rock like Earth rock, because Earth isn't a rock sphere with the moon moving around it and it moving around the sun. So I think that's John's point. You've got to have the first planet, in quotes, first. Right, John?
Right. Yeah. Earth has to be a planet first, and it's not.
Right. So all claims of Mars being a quote-unquote planet, that's it. Game over. Can't make that claim. It's just a light in the sky. No one's travelling through a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum to get there, or to get high. William Shatner didn't even go up high.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking in my mind. I'm saying, how could they be turning this like they're going to be laughing? We're laughing now at them. It's never going to be the other way around.
Who are they? Who are you talking about exactly, Neil?
Some guys at Gems and whoever they are, the anti-flat earthers, ballers, the usual suspects. But I don't think they're
The
flat.
people that
I
know
don't
it's
think,
not a sphere,
listen, I don't think they're
they know
anti-flat
that they
earthers.
know now it's not a sphere. They know now it's not a ball. They just don't want it to be flat. That's what it is, and that's why they stick to that.
I don't know. They really believe that this whole nonsense is true, that the heliocentric model is correct and we're in a solar system. They absolutely believe this.
No, I don't think they do, because they contradict their own claim in the first
If they do,
instance. Well, they can't, because when they go on to debunk their own claim in defence of a flat Earth debunking of the globe claim, that isn't somebody that's trying to retain their faith. That's someone that's living in cognitive dissonance.
right? Yeah, okay, that's what I was about to say. Yeah,
Somebody who just comes along, you can tell them a mile away when they come along and they're just clearly a normie globe believer who is actually just here to retain their globe faith. And they come along and they'll say something in my comment section like, "Is this still a thing? Wow, do people really still think the Earth is flat? Wow, you guys really are idiots." So in other words, they state I can't believe that someone would think anything other than my religious indoctrinated faith that I haven't questioned in the slightest. That's their first opener. And then they go on to say, obviously you are wrong, without any further inquiry. Now they're the luckiest sod alive, really, because they just get on with their normie life, and there's no harm, no foul. Nothing's going to change. Well, that's a globe believer, and that's why I state cognitive pain rather than just somebody here to defend their globe faith. Because the normies that do just come along to defend their globe faith quickly find themselves descending into cognitive dissonance if they persist rather than concede. In other words, they're rolling down the hill before our very eyes.
Nathan, anything we say here, they don't hold to be true.
Only if we've stated it. Did you hear Quantum Eraser's best of with Rumpus? Did you listen to that by any chance?
I have not. Did he just put it out?
He did. He put it out a couple of days ago. But in that clip,
Check it out.
he's on Rumpus is on Jose's channel, and he states something that's contradictory. Quantum Eraser writes it down verbatim and posts it in the text chat for Jose. Jose then reads back Rumpus's quote verbatim, stating that it's come from Quantum Eraser. He listens to the statement that he's just made, read back to him verbatim, but with the from John Quantum Eraser at the end of the quote. And as a consequence, he goes, well, that's a contradiction. He doesn't quite finish his statement, because somewhere in the hamster moving around starts to sort of slow down and go, hold on. Does sound familiar while I'm calling it a contradiction. Yeah, it's your own words. But immediately and instinctively, as soon as he heard from Quantum Eraser, he's like, well, it's got to be instantly wrong. So I'll call it as wrong, because it is. And it's from Quantum Eraser, so I can do that with confidence. Well, no, it's Quantum Eraser quoting you back. But that typifies anti-flat earther behaviour. They will literally say their own statements are contradictory. Yeah, they are anyway, but move against their own statements because they think they've come from their opponent.
I see your point, and I agree, and I do remember that. I do remember that in lifetime when it happened. So yeah, I guess you're right. They're in pain.
Hey, Jorge. Hey, Jorge.
It
Hey.
might be a funny style of debate
Hey,
to
guys.
become a baller whenever.
Hey. Go ahead, John. Sorry. I was just saying hello to George in Discord. You couldn't see him come in, so. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I was going to say it might be a funny style of
Break. Now you're breaking up, of course. Let's try that again.
it might be a funny style of debate or shit.
One more time. From the top.
Is this any better?
Yes.
I was going to say it might be a funny style of debate to become a baller whenever they become an anti-flat earther and just start like pushing the globe on them. Like when they say that they don't expect to see drift, just be like, what are you, are you a flat earther? Telling us we won't see drift.
That is kind of how I've attempted to reposition it, because in us putting their claim as a preface to the debunking of their claim, they will then take us stating their claim, that would be the globe claim, Earth turns underneath to cause Coriolis deflection. They take that statement as you, the flat earther, have just made the statement that Earth should turn underneath stuff to cause Coriolis deflection. That's the switch. That's where they hoodwink you. Suddenly you're defending the globe's claim when they deny their own claim. So they say the globe doesn't claim that we're supposed to see drift in a helicopter. And you're like, what? So then if you're uninitiated, you'll start defending the globe's claim towards the person that's just claimed it's not as it's claimed by the globe. So just to put that into context, step one, what is the globe claim? The globe claims there's Coriolis effect. Everyone heard of Coriolis effect? Yep, you definitely have. Ever heard it in a globe reference? Yep, definitely. Everyone's aware of Coriolis effect. What's Coriolis effect? Not actual deflection. That would be apparent drift from a turning reference frame. That's what Coriolis is. So for Earth to have turning, you've got to have this effect, because they claim you have it. So Earth's going to show a not actual deflection. That's you turning underneath something that's not attached to Earth because it's spinning. That's the claim. Put that to a globe defender. You go, Earth claims we will see drift as we turn underneath things that are not attached. That would mean that I would see drift in a hot air balloon because it's not attached. Response from the anti-flat earther. The globe claims we're not supposed to see drift under a hot air balloon. So then you've got two choices. Correct your opponent, anti-flat earther, in his misapprehensions about what the globe claims, at which stage you're essentially fighting for the globe's claim that you should have drift, while they say that you shouldn't. But while simultaneously begging the question that Earth is turning, we just don't see the claimed Coriolis drift that we should see if we're spinning on a globe. So we are spinning, but we won't see any effect. That's their claim. At which point you've got, realistically, the correct choice to say, well, you're just begging the question then. There's no effect to see, but you're just saying we're turning anyway, with no effect to see. That's just begging the question. There's nothing to show us that that's happening if there's no effect to see. Meanwhile, the globe claims we're supposed to have Coriolis deflection, which would be manifest in a 15 degrees an hour drift from your vantage point turning underneath stuff, and we don't see that happen. You denying that the globe claims we should see it happen is just an anti-flat earth way of getting around the fact that we don't see this effect that the globe claims we should. End of argument. Convoluted even in summary.
Yes, it is. They still need a radius for that, though.
They do. Cuts through the bullshit real quick, doesn't it, that one?
Yeah, that's why the black swan mess with me so much. You know, R is kind of beat into you when you're like in school. If you listen at all to, you know, like what they claim gravity is and everything else, R is essential to everything in heliocentrism.
That's
if
right.
Only it were real.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody with a mathematical mind, perhaps you saw the implications as a more stark realization than I saw the precursor to that mathematical revelation, if you will, which is to say that the horizon is an Earth curve. They're getting all of this from Earth curve, and I've spent 5 years arguing with people about Earth and its curvature in various different guises and maths. So when you get to the black swan and go, whoa, they're now telling us the horizon is an Earth curve. That's nuts. That is the claim. That's your claim. So you telling me from the anti-flat Earth side the horizon's not Earth curve, or we wouldn't expect to see geometric horizons. It's like, so we wouldn't expect to see Earth curve? No, the geometric horizon, that's Earth curve, only exists in the maths. You're like, Jesus. So you've got a mathematical reification only now. You're not even going to try and transpose it onto the reality that's taken in pictures, putting them side by side with your Muppet vision, claiming that the horizon's Earth curve in physical terms for things to be blocked by it. You're literally going to tell me, the flat earther, that the globe doesn't claim Earth curve anymore. My God, that's a massive revelation. Obviously, as you point out correctly, the wider reaching implications are that every single thing they ever do claim has an R in it. And they need the horizon to be physical to get R. If it isn't, no R.
Right, because even the best attempts to try to slip R in there is still reliant on, the Earth curving away from you in all directions from where you stand. So if the horizon's not Earth curve, it's not doing that.
Yeah. And that couldn't be better. It seems, almost religious. What's the word? Is it cathartic? I can't quite find the right word for what I'm trying to describe. But in terms of, you have 21 months now of people barking refraction, no straight line, can't get a straight line, wouldn't expect to see a straight line, only exists in the maths. You go, okay, this tool gets us around Earth with straight lines. I mean, where are you going to go? Only the most stupid people like Sean Hawkins come back and say, we've got a straight line to the horizon. You're like, my God, Black Swan, hello, it's been 21 months. My God, how long does it take? It really is pathetic. But, other than the idiots, like, well, Virus did it too, didn't he? Well, you just look and you get a straight line to the horizon. All right, Black Swan, Earth not a sphere then. Radius 3959, every distance to that straight line to the horizon. Yeah. Further to that, even in your bent world of refracted horizons, you've still not got a straight line, because everything from your feet out isn't straight. It's bending away from you. So you haven't got a straight line to use this tool. And what are you going to do? Just tell us you have when you've spent 21 months telling us you haven't? It's so beautiful in terms of the timing. Because literally, as the Black Swan progressed more and more, you just sort of shake your head when people are like, oh, it's refraction. You go, yeah, but now I've got to break down to you how you stating refraction means you can't attain the geometry that the entire belief of a sphere is based on. Because halfway through that sentence, they've glazed over. Their eyes have vaguely gone somewhere else. So even that minor explanation. However, you bring the sextant into it, and you go, okay, well, let's just continue as we have, focusing on the Black Swan, because that's the precursor. So Black Swan, Black Swan, Black Swan, refracted, refracted, refracted. Okay, what about this straight line? And then only the idiots, as I say, go, well, we get a straight line then. It's like, what? You've got to be really dumb on the globe side at this stage to be stating things like that.
Yeah, to say that vision and is straight and light is curved is probably the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, meanwhile, Muppet Vision mathematics that doesn't take optics into consideration in any way, shape or form.
That's a contradiction, though.
Yeah, no shit, Neil. If the light is bending, then that's what you're seeing, right? That's what they're claiming. Slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena holographic projections of things from behind reified sphere edges. That's light bending into your eye, right? So we haven't got a straight line, it's bent. Yeah, that means you're seeing something that's got a bent line to it. Well, the light is the line, if you will. In their world, they've got light rays, and you can trace them. Yeah, that's what they're describing. So, so we understand now that you're saying that all the light comes into my eye, bent at a rate of 7/6 in standard form, or whatever fudge value you need to apply on whatever given day and conditions. Okay, light bending through the air to my eye, according to your begging the question, sphere belief, and fundy sky vacuum that doesn't work. Okay, what's that? But when you need a straight line, that line is now straight because your vision's straight, but it's only the light that's bending. Yeah, that's a total contradiction, Neil.
Well, it's even worse than that, too, because the 7/6 never meant to move the horizon. Whenever they started saying that, it didn't make any sense. I mean, anybody that knows anything about a theodolite or sextant knows that the horizon's angular relation to your eye is based on your height, right? It doesn't say anything for distance because it's not geometric. But the minute that they, accept that it's not geometric, it's no longer a sphere.
And they can no longer use the geometric tools, they can no longer derive the geometric R value, they can no longer make a claim that the horizon's physically blocking boats and buildings. Everything falls into a pit of oblivion the moment they decry their own geometry. Refracted horizon? No, yours is geometric. Earth curve is your geometric limitation on a sphere. If it's not geometric, it's not Earth curve. If it's not Earth curve, the horizon's just the apparent position where the sky meets the ground. And what do you know? It's the word that they derive horizontal with. So it's horizontal. That's what it is.
Right, but when you're using a sextant or theodolite, you're not adjusting for refraction to move the horizon anywhere. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, you're
anybody,
correcting for height.
right? So what you can't say that's refracted. That's ridiculous. Or those tools would be useless.
Well, you can't say it's refracted because you're trying to acquire a zero baseline. So your acquisition of a zero straight flat baseline, what are you going to do? Say, well, the reason I'm doing it with this tool that needs me to acquire a straight flat baseline is because I'm going to make 16 assumptions that everything around me is curving in all directions. I can't see my own hand in front of my face because of terrestrial refraction. Earth's got a radius value that can't be measured with a geometric horizon because I can't see it because it's dipped away from me and isn't really there, it's refracted. So based on all of that, I'm going to now derive a straight flat level baseline for this geometric tool? No, you won't. Globe believing idiots. Earth's flat.
Yeah, it's all pride now, though. With all that information, and they're still refusing. It's got to be pride. Pride that they've been duped so long. And what John said very early in this argument, that they'll have to relinquish their belief in globe Earth if they agree to anything with the Black Swan.
There's only so much pain a person can tolerate. Now, this type of pain would normally come from things like financial difficulties, things that you can't escape from. Now, this is very similar in terms of what will be happening to them. And I say it with a bit of a quiver in my voice because it kind of scares me. I wouldn't want to be them, because I see it all day long. We all do. We all see their cognitive pain. While we make light of it, because we're not experiencing it, it's very real. Now, for the guys that are long-termers, that are being here, dug into the trenches, dealing with that day in, day out, it is, because they tell us, affecting their sleep, causing them to stress about things and how the world might be if the worst was true. All of those things are very real for them. Now, people can't cope with that. Long term, they can't do it. It's not possible. You just get messed up. So, as we're fairly long down this road already, what do you think's going to happen long term, Neil, to these people in this cognitive dissonance for prolonged periods of time? Where do you think that road ends for them, Neil?
An anti-flat Earth. What do you mean? Doesn't
They're
end
already
good, I
there.
know that.
That's what I'm describing. They're already there.
A nut house.
Yeah, the nut house.
Pain,
The
denial.
nut house. That's where they're destined. They're all destined for nervous breakdowns.
No. They're going to
Yeah.
take it to that extreme?
Yes.
Yes, they will.
Yes, Neil. I'm not joking.
It felt like my mind threw up when I figured it out.
Well,
Like,
then this is more serious than I thought.
I really did. It felt like my mind threw up, and like I had like trouble breathing. I mean, I freaked out.
Really? I mean, I just welcomed it after fighting it for a couple of weeks and abusing, berating my brother. Once I came to the realization, I was like, wow, that makes everything brand new. I didn't resist.
Yeah, but you're just whizzing by the pain bit and saying, all right, after that bit, that's the bit John's describing. The after that bit, the 2 weeks of fighting with your brother or calling him mate, well, there's a transition in between, isn't there?
Yeah, because like everything that I thought I knew was tied up in the measurements. That, like what is measured, and I thought I could measure the globe, and that's what is. And it was like reality got jerked out from underneath me.
Yep. And I've heard that story from anti-flat earthers on several occasions. That's not a unique story. And the pain, once you're really into the thick of it, comes from having to suppress that realization, and at the same time, they're going to still mentally contemplate the worst case scenario. Again, I've heard them voice it. So they contemplate the worst case scenario in terms of the vast scale of lies and deception, blah, 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 blah. Because it's all like, so what? Yeah, get over it. Because they can't. They're stuck there, and they'll end up in the nut house.
Well, I've never been a big believer in consensus reality, Like I never did get caught up on that. Maybe that's why it wasn't as hard on me. But a lot of the people that argue on this subject think that if everyone believes it, then it's true. And that's a problem.
Nathan, then I'm sorry. Chemo's right. We have to take a whole new approach. We have to help these people.
Why are you laughing? Spurs has got a point. Spurs has got a bigger heart than I when it comes to the fundamentalist religious zealots on the anti-flat earth side of the side.
Come on.
He has. He's got a lot more empathy than I have.
Nathan, all they're going to do is come to reality that Earth is not a sphere and it's flat. Then they come to a saving knowledge of God. That's the end result. Or,
No.
I guess the nut house here, he might be right.
No, they'll refuse what is so much that they'll lose grasp on everything else around them.
Exactly. That's much more accurate. So just to take it away from the example, back onto the financial example. Your head's in the books, you're constantly worried, you're juggling your loans, you're whoring your credit cards, you're doing all this stuff, and you don't notice that your wife isn't getting paid attention to, and the kid's starting to despise you, and you're telling everyone to leave you alone the whole time. And by the time you get back mildly on track, you look around you, and everything around you's turned to shit. And you go, well, how did that happen while I was sorting out this financial crisis? It's because you were so fixated on the problem that you didn't realise that everything around you was collapsing. Now, what have you got to step back into? A whole load of misery. Well, if you spend your whole time contemplating how the world that you used to, the mainstream lies, the rhetoric that comes through the telly box, the manipulation of distribution of information in social media, if you start contemplating those things without actually having a grasp on the fact that you're going to have to deal with it and cope with it, you're just like, what ifing it, however you can phrase that, It's all, well, no, but that isn't really how it is. But if it is, they're going to be like this and that and the other. You're just going to, send yourself into a paranoid 8/10th.
Good morning.
Good morning. Into a spiral that isn't good.
I don't know. Maybe I'm naive.
Maybe you're too concerned. It's not your problem. Selfish as
I
that
just laughed
sounds.
about it. How am I too concerned?
Because we're discussing it. Same
It's
could be
funny
said to me. I've obviously contemplated this, therefore spent a few minutes of my day contemplating it. That was about it. Then it becomes the reason for the contemplation. Is it because I'm deeply concerned about the Illuminati hunting me down for revealing the truth of the obvious nature of our reality? No. Just because it might be a good talking point on the show.
No, you should probably be more worried about an anti-flat earther going insane and attacking you.
I do concern myself with that. That's something else I've contemplated. Basically going postal. That's what you were describing, going postal.
Right, because in their somewhere in their mind, they may build it up that if you would just stop talking, then they could forget all of this.
Then they could climb, exactly. They could climb back up the hill of the guy we described at the beginning of the conversation, the guy that dips in for a tertiary glance and goes, "Is this still a thing? We found out 1,000 years ago it's a sphere, And then they go on and have ice cream and get on with their fundy globe-believing life, oblivious. Even though they've managed to scratch hold on, Neil. Even though they've managed to scratch the surface. Well, the guy who then actually finds 3 people on his ice cream recce, telling him about how it is actually flat and he can't get around any of the arguments, suddenly he's tripped over the edge and he's rolling down the hill. Now, add on 5 years to that guy's life, and suddenly he's got a lot of stress to deal with, a lot of contemplation that he doesn't want to have to deal with, and he's having to deal with it every time somebody who's in the valley at the bottom of the hill, like me, is saying, "Yeah, man, look how beautiful our world is. We've got a world of contemplation now. Wonder why the sky's blue." That guy just goes, "If he would just shut up, I'd be at the top of that hill still."
Yeah, but it doesn't take it away, no matter what happens. Even if they came and got rid of you and shut you up somehow, it's still not going to take away the truth.
No.
Neil, you know that. They don't.
How'd we get on this subject? Who's coming after who?
No, they're saying about the mental health of people that deny reality for so long. It's detrimental to their mental health, and what some of the repercussions of that could be.
Oh, okay. Well, that can happen across all fronts and all subjects.
Yeah, Nathan was comparing it with economics and like balancing your books.
Oh, sure.
Not that was terrible. Not balancing your books. Somebody who's in financial disarray and is solely focused on that particular problem. It could be anything. It could be somebody who's building a new house or building a new business, or it doesn't matter. Anything that takes your attention away. When there's a crisis in that particular area, if suddenly you get tunnel vision, then there's a good chance that everything around you is going to start going to crap because you're not giving it any attention at all.
You're describing a lot of what's similar when somebody or a group of people, through, say, politics in their country, take something that's raised to a level of God or that high in their mind, comes out to either fall apart, get defeated, or the truth comes out it's a lie. They're just devastated because that was their God. That's all they thought about. That was their pursuit. And then to come find out it's all a lie, that's a devastating thing. Happens all the time.
Yeah, but they're not accepting it as a lie. That's really they can't grieve over the lie that's been perpetrated to them. So it's causing mental problems.
No. As in my description there, as long as they don't feel it's a lie, they're okay. They're in la la land. They're in their own world, so to speak. It's when they find out it's a lie, it gets problematic, and they have to deal with it.
So the anti-flat earthers realize that there is no coriolis effect on Earth?
No.
No, but that's what they're saying. If they could just shut Nathan up, then they don't have to deal with the lie.
Oh gosh,
That's
how
what
did
I'm
get?
saying. Yeah.
No. They believe No. They believe Coriolis is on Earth. You listen to Virus, he actually thinks we're describing it wrong.
Coriolis
And then
is
he'll
the
tell you it's
yeah.
nothing
The
to
lie
see.
they've got to tell themselves in that respect is conservation of momentum is Coriolis. That's the lie they tell themselves. I'm sure they can find
Right. So,
reference to say no. You're
I
right
agree with that.
in your misapprehensions about what the claim of Coriolis, that would be drift from a turning reference frame observed in something that's not attached. They can say that no, conserving momentum and showing no effect is actually drift, or it's just a little bit of the drift. They can believe whatever they want, right? It's just whatever rhetoric they can find to affirm their bias. And it's a religion, so there's going to be some doctrine that they'll dig out that says, no, see, we told you, here it states, no drift to sea. So everything's cushy. We just beg the question of
right.
the turn. Happy days.
That's right, because then they're describing a closed system, which is another thing they have to overcome because they're in an open system.
Yeah. Well, that was part of the chat with that guy, wasn't it? It's described in a van or in a plane, or it's like, well, it won't drift if it's in a plane. All right, so Earth's in a plane then.
That's right. I remember that.
Plus, just to speak to what you started off with, heliocentrism is the one world religion. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Neil, John, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to have you. Before we move forward with the housekeeping, is there any traumatized souls left in the Discord server from the discussion we had in the pre-show? Obviously, if anybody needs to share their pain after that experience, we'll do that and get it out of the way before we keep the trauma level high, because that's what's going to happen. Anybody at all, this is your opportunity. It's almost like saying mercy. Mercy, no more. So in the pre-show, before we get into housekeeping, we were discussing the cognitive pain that is experienced by anti-flat earthers going against their own rhetoric because a flat earther has challenged it and debunked it. So in order to retain the same rhetoric, they have to engage in cognitive dissonance, hold the original position and hold the debunking that they use against a flat earther who's refuted it. Well, that is all well and good for a limited time, but over the long term, that's not going to be good. So that's what we were discussing in the pre-show, just so it doesn't turn into an in-joke at the beginning of a live show. So now you're up to date. Anybody got anything to add from G+? If you need to share your pain, now's your time. If not, we're going to move on with housekeeping. Secretly, I'm hoping someone's going to share their pain from Discord in case you can't tell. No. 10th, do you fancy doing the housekeeping today? I can give out some answers then.
Okay, let's see. Any evidence of axial rotation? The Earth-based variety?
I was just going to say, I see it in a lot of places, but not on Earth-based.
Where do you see it, Neil?
Well, I just seen a machinery out here rotating. Crane spinning around.
He said of the Earth-based variety. He did qualify the question, Neil. Come on, be reasonable.
At the end, he said it. I was about to say it, and then he said of the Earth-based variety. Come on, Nathan, pay attention.
Yeah, so
Oh, my bad.
I took him there. Yeah, I took him there on purpose. So what do you observe when you observe axial rotation of the non-Earth-based variety?
You mean the
rotate.
crane? Well, I observe it spinning. It rotated around to get to the other side of the building.
If you're on the
something's
if you're on the rotating platform that you're describing as having a rotational value, then you'll probably observe things not attached with coriolis deflection. That would be them appearing to move because you're actually moving.
so something's moving, right, Neil?
Correct. Yes, the crane is moving.
Does the crane operator feel the crane moving?
Oh, he feels it. I'm watching it from the window, though. So what does that make me?
The window watcher?
You're not on the crane. Well, if this is to be translated to Coriolis effect, right, a crane has got a pivot point, right, so it can spin around 360 degrees, pick up bricks and drop them somewhere else. Fine, we all understand that. Well, if that crane operator turns, right, as he swings the crane, yeah, he will experience the Coriolis deflection. In other words, if he happens to forget that it's him moving a stick to turn the crane, and he looks out the window and goes, wow, that high-rise building looks like it's coming towards me. Yeah? Now, if he continues on that delusion, because it's an illusion that he's describing, it looks like the building's coming to get you. No, the building's definitely not moving. But it looks like it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and bang! Yeah, his crane hits the building. Because it's him moving and not the building. But it looked like the building was coming to get him, and in the accident report, the building came to get me. I looked it up, it was Coriolis force.
For that axis, and that radial swing you're describing, wouldn't we need a radial value to measure before we could just start describing this not actual force?
Well, that leads me to the next question. Any evidence of Earth radius, the R value?
You'll need that to describe the radial value when you're giving an axial rotation. So, yeah, if you were to describe how quickly the building was going towards the crane, you'd need the rate of the rotation. Well, you'd get that from R, wouldn't you, now? So, I haven't got an R value. I'm really sorry. Can't get one for Earth either.
Well, how about any signs of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
No, the horizon's not an Earth curve.
We're not doing so good here. Okay. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
What's that?
It's the bending of a pseudo-Riemannian force space-time in mathematics currently. Or, if you prefer the stale, mouldy, out-of-date Newtonian, it's the concept that mass, things like helium, attract mass, things like the claim mass of Earth. And helium goes down, go boom boom, because it has mass. Obviously, that's out of date by 106 years old, which is why I position it in the nonsensical rhetoric of mass attracting mass when it doesn't. But currently, it's a conceptual medium known as pseudo-force space bending.
Well, in both of those gravities, you have to live on a ball first, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, you need a radius for that.
He says we'll need the
Is that
R
all you
value.
got to say?
He says we'll need the R value 10th, the one you asked for earlier. For that.
Yeah, the one that the one that we already got a non-answer for.
Is that
Well,
going to be an answer for everything?
Well, you can't get it. I mean, he asked us if we had a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon, and, you know, we haven't. And you need that to get R. So they're a bit, well, buggered.
It's also what they say. All we say is you don't have R, you don't have R, you don't have R. That's
All
another
right.
thing I heard.
Well, do you have to have R to have any evidence to the distance of the sun?
Oh, you'll need R for that.
All right. Well, let's change it up a bit. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of cosmology, astronomy, or astrophysics?
No, all those fields provide is pseudoscience. They've got plenty of phenomena to study. They could easily formulate viable hypotheses, but they don't. They just come up with just so stories, observe and declare, and then put it in a classroom labelled science.
They don't consider it that way, though. They consider themselves to be scientists.
Have they got any viable hypotheses?
No, they can't.
No, they're not science then.
Any hypotheses.
So it's science, but not by the scientific method, Neil? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think somewhere along the line they got confused with what science is and what pseudoscience is. And they chose the pseudoscience side for monetary gain.
Well, when they attribute science to how a car tire works, how far do you think they'll take it on other subjects?
I hear it on commercials all the time.
Right. So is it viable?
No. It's just a sales pitch.
All right.
Who are the people
Any
behind
evidence
this
of-
manipulation? Are they really obviously ugly, horrible people that can be seen through
look like
very
they
easily?
live.
Or
Hold on, you're talking about the people in the advertisements that say now comes the science part as they waft their beautiful blonde hair over their shoulder. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Why do they have to be ugly, horrible people?
Well, you got to put the glasses on to see them. We have our glasses
because
on.
they're manipulating us and lying to us.
Hold on, are you telling me that the 2021 idea of a sexy scientist in a low-cut lab coat with glasses right on the tip of her nose staring down a pencil at you, you're telling me that's not what a scientist is?
No, it
What
is
if-
to the world, but hold on. Once you put your sunglasses
Yeah.
on and you see, that's when you see the monster.
What if what if they're being lied to?
Nah, when she was chewing that pencil telling me how Pirelli's grip better, I'm pretty certain she knew what she was talking about, man. She said science.
Well, there is a radial value to that one. The tire, that is. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the center of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No. You'll
Why
need
you
R for that.
laughing? You need R for that.
Isn't that
I-
just some crazy way of trying to justify how there is a magnetic field on a presupposed sphere?
Yeah, the magnetic field is a lot to do with the deception in terms of how we navigate and how the maps are laid out. So if you've got a mass deception and thousands of maps, and you can see the quadrupole map on screen now. This is a quadrupole azimuthal equidistant globe projection, North Pole centric. That's what you're looking at on screen right now. Is this North Pole? I think this might be... Actually, I think this is South Pole centric. I don't know. No, it is North Pole centric, sorry. Had to look for a second there. But there you go. There's a way of looking at the magnetic fields across Earth with a quadrupole system. Shout out to Cami Nodal, who originally sent me this image. But you can see how, if that's the way that you're navigating, it's very, very distorted. Well, what should we focus on? Should we focus on just the magnetic fields and what they are and how they're used? Or maybe we should focus on something that's at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth so we can argue about that said presupposed spherical Earth in the presupposition when we debate about whether or not we've got a molten core, for the automatic assumption on both sides that Earth's a sphere and whether or not it's got a molten core will be the debating point. I would suggest that if you've got thousands of maps and magnetic lines are things that are deceiving people into going round in circles in some instances, it might be a good idea to have the actual argument point be focused on a farcical molten iron core rather than the magnetic field lines themselves.
Right, because even if you debunk the molten iron core, Earth's still a sphere in their minds. So
Exactly.
they can say,
Exactly. Still begging the question either way. Go ahead, sorry, I stepped all over you.
yeah, that's it, and that's sort of how they do their coriolis argument, whether they expect to see things deviating at 15 degrees an hour, thanks, Bob, or everything's rotating together. As long as you are discussing how Earth is rotating, they're happy.
Well, let's see if this question makes them happy. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Answer is in the question. Necessary antecedent means it is absolutely required to have the gas pressure you describe in the question. So the necessary antecedent to have gas pressure is a container. So to ask if you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container is self-defeating.
Or a very good question.
It's a very good question when you consider that the sky is claimed to be a vacuum.
Not the gradient.
What about it?
Well, they're
How do
using
we have a gradient?
they're using
What precedes a gradient?
Container for gas
Gas
pressure
pressure.
to develop in the first place?
Go on, John. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that they use that, to calculate. They take and say, well, there's a vacuum between the ground and Mount Everest, and it's not filling that. So obviously, this massive volume of the universe is possible to not be filled by the gas.
Well, filled by what? What are you filling it in?
The gas, just a gas.
Yeah, and it's gas pressure. So how do you get gas pressure, and what is the volume that it's in? Sounds eerily like some kind of container.
Right, but I was just describing how they do the trick.
But not much of a trick when you ask them what pressure is and how to get it. And really, the simplest way to defeat this is show us gas pressure without containment.
Oh, how
possible?
easy it is to be arrogant when you've got hindsight. We all fell for this. You say it's not a good trick. I beg to differ.
Well, if you're paying mind to it versus not paying mind,
I don't know if I agree with that either, because at one point in time, you couldn't say everyone in the world was a heliocentrist. This idea had to come into play. So somebody as an adult had to accept it that was paying mind.
Well, I was going to tie it to my story with my science teacher. When I, as a kid, as curious as a kid is, I kept asking questions. I said, well, how's that possible? How's this possible? I mean, on all different subjects, including the earth and evolution, everything. And he just says, look, shut up. Stop asking me this. I don't even believe it. I just got to teach it. Well, something happened to me at that time. It's like, wait a minute. Okay. So they're just saying things. They can't answer my question. I'm going to go play football. So I stopped being curious.
But not all teachers are like that either, though.
Well, I thank that one for being that way, because it was pretty obvious what was happening.
Because realistically, if they wanted you to stop asking questions, they would just use the trick of you don't understand, and everyone would laugh at you.
Well, I don't think he was that kind of a teacher, obviously. He probably had issues with it, and he just wants to get on with his day and clock out and go
Or you can
home.
have a teacher like, or you can have a teacher like mine that just sent me to the back of the class all the time.
that the conclusion of housekeeping?
Yes, that's the conclusion.
No, you didn't do molten iron core.
Neil, he did all of the housekeeping. It was epic. Weren't you here?
He's in the back of the class.
Well, every time I pass the elevator, I lose you. So I didn't get anything John said.
Oh, notice the information that comes out later. I missed half of those.
I do. I can't stand this job because I'm missing everything.
Okay, so quick disclaimer. Arwin's not here today because he's on strike. So basically, yesterday, Arwin's a very big Star Trek fan. And as a consequence, he was quite hyped up about the idea of William Shatner going up very high in the sky. Now, at a point, knowing nothing about this, I was happy to accept that until they showed what was claimed to be the interior shots of the journey, and it was a stage with high wire, making every claim, every part of the claim, fake in all regards. Now, upon pointing that out, Arwin said I can't remember what words he used, but belligerent and didn't listen. That's his criticisms of me. Fair enough. You know, when he was saying it in my chat today, when I was re-airing that members only currently video, that debate from yesterday, Arwin was in the chat going, "You guys aren't exercising reasonable logic," or words to that effect. So, no, go ahead.
No, I recall that too, but I recall a little different tenor to the conversation. He agreed that part was faked or very highly possibly faked. So he agreed with that. And then he wanted to say, but there's still a chance that the rest of the stuff happened. And to which we all gave our own versions of, okay, fine. Assume it did happen. Assume they faked the scenes on the stage and then they actually went up and came down. Well, what does that tell you? That he knows that it's a lie and he's an actor. Well, let's assume that it did happen, option 2 now, and they never went up. It was just all imagery and they got dropped from some other airplane and they came down. Well, still, you have the same problem. If they fake in one part of it, they're either faking all of it or they're not faking part of the rest. But if you're in on the fake, why do you trust that guy? And it was more of a, he wanted to have some kind of honor for William Shatner after he said William Shatner faked it. He said that.
Arwin said he wanted to retain the honour of William Shatner.
No, he said that he agreed that scene in the capsule that you're describing is fakery. But he wanted to have what you said, that good feeling about Captain Kirk, so to speak. And so he wanted to attribute some other things that are valid to him. And
But
we
he's
were all
an
saying, who
actor.
cares?
I mean,
Right, but that's what we all said. He's an actor, and who cares?
it's because hold on the current telebox narrative, right? It seems there's a misapprehension about what's being presented. Now, we can talk to the normies who haven't grasped yet that what is presented on the screen isn't necessarily as it seems. Now, that to us seems really obvious, and to anybody who's in the act realm listening, they'll go, yeah, obviously. You know, the TV lies, you can orchestrate and manufacture whatever you like. Now, notwithstanding that we here typically all believe that, in this case, there is a presentation that's given a slightly different slant. What we're saying, well, he's just an actor. Well, there might be a bit of a disconnect to anybody hearing that. And this will maybe level that disconnect. It's William Shatner playing William Shatner in the stage performance of Jeff Bezos' space rocket launch. That is the piece that has been prepared to be presented to the public. Now, let's not go to the whys and wherefores, or it's propaganda for this reason. That's what I mean by whys and wherefores. Let's not cover that. It's just, what is it? Well, Mr. Shatner, would you like to appear in this piece? What's the piece? Well, you'll be strapped to a trapeze and dangled around in space. Something you're fairly familiar with, I assume, Mr. Shatner? Oh, yes, I've got lots of experience. Excellent. That's what we'll be doing. We'll pay you X amount. What's the name of my character? Well, it'll be you. Oh, so it'll be William Shatner doing it. Yeah, William Shatner as William Shatner. Okay, so it's me going into a pretend rocket then. Yeah, that's right. You are going to be on screen pretending. Everyone watching will think that's the whole point of this act. To make everyone watching think you're going to space. Like you've done 1,000 times. All good? Here's your check. See you on Monday. Thank you, Mr. Shatner. That's it. It's just that simple. But because he's got his name and there's no credits to it being a dramatisation, they just haven't wrote the word dramatisation above it. But do they write the word dramatisation above the Star Trek presentation? If you were an alien and you happen to land, a heliocentric alien from outer space, and you happen to land on Earth, and you tuned into Star Trek, yeah? Would it suddenly be glaringly obvious that this is just a act? The whole point of every presentation in terms of TV suspension of disbelief is to make you believe the characters are in that situation. When they land on a far-off place, you want to believe that they're actually there. If they say it's Australia, it's actually filmed in Miami, you want the conveyance of the imagery to make you believe that these people are in Australia doing whatever they're doing on the coral reef, right? Doesn't matter that they're not really there, so long as you can suspend disbelief that they're there. And that's the same principle when it's a TV made for public consumption presentation that doesn't have the disclaimer that it's a dramatisation. It still is. It's William Shatner dramatising the notion of this fake place called space. And that's all it is. So what that it's got his name ascribed to it rather than Captain Kirk's name ascribed to the character. There's no distinction being drawn because there is no distinction. And who is it that made that point, that there is no distinction between the sci-fi reality and the space reality? Well, he did. William Shatner did. What's the difference between science fiction and science? According to William Shatner, there isn't any difference. Well, that's because the science in those quotation marks is the pseudo-science bullshit world of space. And he's carrying on that like he has since he's been in this career. So, what's the shock? Well, because in this regard, it's him supposed to be doing it. It's not him doing an act. That's not made abundantly clear to Arwen. So Arwen's going to take it that William Shatner's out there doing his William Shatner thing. No, he's playing William Shatner, pretending to be in space as himself.
Well, again, you have to listen to Arwen's words, so we have to be fair. He admitted that he believed that the capsule scene was faked. But he wanted to hold on to a possibility that the rest of it could have happened. To which we all said...
I think he doesn't want to accept that Shatner might lie. That he believes in the character of Shatner.
No. There's no lies. No. I'm not going to tolerate that. Shatner's a trained actor. He's a professional, and he's doing his job. He is performing a piece, and his purpose, Shatner's purpose, is to get his audience, in any capacity, doesn't matter the desires of the director and the producer in terms of what capacity they want. His job is to get the person watching what he does to suspend disbelief. That's it. That's his job. So when you say, well, he's a liar, yeah, because he's got his name above the door in this instance. So if you want to take it as the performance is being led to you, then William Shatner, the person, is a liar. That's not who's on screen. It's William Shatner, the actor, playing William Shatner. Now, the fact that you haven't picked up on that can mean that you describe him as a liar in those contexts. I've titled my last video, yeah, The Lie Wire, because I don't want it to be overtly the case stated that William Shatner, the person, is a liar, because he's not him outside his front door as him, without any coercion, without any check, without any obligations to fulfill, completely unbiased, on his front door in his dressing gown and pants going, what are you doing here? Well, we just want to know if you think space is real. That would be a different story. This is not that. This is an orchestrated, pre-produced event that has been done and performed by an actor.
I would like to rebut that. Because under the same criteria, you could not say the astronauts are liars.
Yeah, I know that. I'm getting there. I'm just playing. Arwen's not here, right? I've got to play devil's advocate. There is no Nathwin. This is how I do it. Just deal with it.
Oh, there was a movie that you
I've got to put the just for John. Hold on. Just for John. I've got to put the converse position, though, haven't I? And, yeah, you stole my thunder completely. If I make that argument for Will Shatner, then I can say, well, Tim, what's his name? Oh, let's just let Sleeping Warrior in. The same argument could be had for him, then. Oh, well, he's just playing the character of Tim Peake. Is that his name? I think it is. Hey, Sleeping Warrior.
Yeah, I think so.
Hey.
Hey. Have you joined because you're into this conversation, or have you got news, or should I be introducing you into this conversation, or what?
I just watched the clip of Arwen yesterday, and it was obvious that I didn't realise that Arwen was a fan of, is it Star Trek or Star Wars? But I was watching that footage live. Well, I say live, recorded live with my missus, and I said to her, "Do you really think that that's taken off the way that they show it?" And she went, "It looks real." I said, "That clearly looks like a cartoon." I said, "Can you not distinguish that from real world?" And she said, "But why would they do that?" I said, "To make you believe in the lie." I said, "Do you honestly think the footage is real?" And she went, and I said, "Come on." I said, "If it's not real, what does that do to that footage?" And she said, "Well, it's just for telly, innit?" I said, "There you go." I said, "They're making you believe shit that's not true."
It's made for telly. It's a performance for telly. It's for
And you were right. You were right, Nathan. If the evidence presented is presented to prove the positive claim that blah, 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 and then that evidence is faulty, then that positive claim then fails. I can't believe Arwen was arguing it. I was like, come on, Arwen, you know the score. If the claim is that A, B, and C, and then they produce the evidence for A, B, and C, and then it turns out that evidence is wrong, that claim fails. So that means William Shatner did not go to wherever it was he was supposed to go, 350 kilometers high or whatever it was. He didn't do that. You were right.
Yeah. But, I get it. It's one of those things that it's hard to deal with because in many ways you could say, well, surely it's possible to just send him up high and then have him come back down again, right? Surely that's easy enough to do. We don't even have to say he's lying about anything. He's just gone up to somewhere quite high and come back down, right? Surely he can do that. No. If they did, they would. They'd just show the footage. It would be dead simple. He could be in there taking bloody Snapchat pictures. Hello? He'd be on the cell phone. Why wouldn't he be?
Yeah.
No, none of that has occurred because it's all been orchestrated. But to Arwen, no, it was in his mind possible to do, and so is it in my mind. I hadn't seen any of this footage till yesterday's show. It was the first I'd seen of it, literally. There and then, mate, you got my immediate reaction to it. I don't watch any of this crap. So you got to see my immediate reaction. And right the way till 90% to the end of the conversation, I'm like, yeah, they probably have sent him up high. Big wow, so what? What's that prove? It didn't bother me. And I'm sure I was the same. Yeah, I'm sure Shatner could go up high. He's got the money, he's got the connections. He even said it. So what's to disbelieve? But then suddenly when you go, hold on, part of what comes with is he could just possibly go up high. Yeah, but he definitely didn't. Because look, here's the fakery. You know this fakery. Yeah, I do, says Arwen. Well, that's where Sleeping Warrior says, well, at that point, unfortunately for Arwen, it's all bets are off. But that doesn't mean we can't empathise with him. He wasn't happy. I don't like to see Arwen upset. Today when he was telling me off in my own chat, I just accepted it. I was like, okay, Arwen. Not in a condescending way. I'm just like, I don't want to argue with you. I don't want you to be upset about this. And he is. So I have got empathy. When it comes to people I like, I've got a lot of empathy. And I don't want Arwen to be upset about this. But he is. And, unfortunately for him, that was captured on an after show. And I was going to be trimming that out because it's absolutely relevant to the current state of affairs. And there's going to be people who might not tune into the other much more technical-based conversations that we have about something like Coriolis in favour of seeing the repetition of the sky's not a vacuum, we'd all be dead, there'd be no gas pressure, and a claim that we went up to an area that was near to an area that violates the second law isn't true. How do we know? Well, because here's the footage from inside the studio on high wire. So that's the end of the claim.
Let me give a totally
But did
valid...
they shoot anything up? Did anything
Doesn't
go
matter.
up in the
Maybe. Let's just take it as read that they did, Neil, just to draw a line under that. Yes. They sent a penis-shaped firework into the sky. Yes, they did. Did it go up?
That's
Just
what
in
I
case
said.
anybody in the chat wants to go, yeah, they did send a rocket up to that high. Yeah, okay. And?
Well, that's what I said, and I was told in Arwen's chat, why don't you take a ride to Florida next time and see it go up with your own eyes like I did.
Hey, I covered that yesterday too, though, didn't I? So what did you see, Mr. I went to Florida and watched it take off? Well, I watched a cylindrical penis-shaped object go into the sky. So that's what we know happened then.
Exactly.
No further inference can be drawn from your observation point down on the ground. Did you see a little CGI Shatner get in? Because for some reason, when they showed him inside, that definitely wasn't inside what you saw fly into the sky. I can tell you that with absolute certitude, because what we were shown from inside the rocket was actually on a set with men dangling on wires. So that wasn't inside. They didn't have a little lit studio with men on wires inside the top of that penis. What you saw was just a firework.
Let me just give a direct equivalence. I feel the pain with Arwen because, like, Knight Rider was like my favorite TV show ever. Like being a kid.
Hold on, don't draw this
car.
as a. Hold on, I've got to stop you straight away. Knight Rider is real,
What?
so you can't really use this as a comparison.
Yeah, but listen. There's a point though, right? So when I got to about like 10, and it was like early 90s, I actually saw a film called The Making of Knight Rider. And when they were showing how they did turbo boosts and they played it, like slowed it down to frame by frame and showed that there was no engine in these cars. Do you realize how much pain I felt when I saw that? I thought it were real, man. I thought turbo boosts were I thought he was really doing it. And I saw that and I was like, no way. That's the pain. I feel it. And I get it, Arwen. I get it.
Okay, we interrupt this flat earth debate for a quick Knight Rider trivia quiz. How much did, was it Universal? I believe it is Universal. Yeah, how much did Universal pay for the Trans Am in dollars?
They were giving it free. They were giving
No, they weren't.
free.
Nope, incorrect.
No, they were. They were giving them free.
Wrong.
If you look into it.
Just accept it. You are wrong. Anybody else got to guess?
Hold on, let me Google it.
Don't Google it.
each?
Just guess. Any other guess?
100
Any advances on zero, which is wrong?
Zero is correct.
It's not
Shipping and
correct.
handling.
Can you stop
$5?
saying
It
the
is
wrong
correct.
answer? It's wrong. They did not pay zero for that. They paid an amount changed hands. You're wrong.
That's not true.
Yeah,
Did they
it
pay
is
shipping
true.
and handling?
Jesus wept.
The cars,
Who's having
the
this
cars
quiz?
came from a train crash.
He'd be the guy at the
Pontiac
pub
made the
pissed,
car.
right? Telling me all about who released the album first when they're wrong.
You're gonna lose
$8.
Anthony today now?
Can I just give you the answer? They paid $1 for that car because it was part
That's
of.
£1.
Ruin the end of the story, I would, Neil. They paid $1 for all of those vehicles, right? The ones that are cars that are used on those shows of that era. Because there was a train crash and a whole bunch of cars fell off and they could no longer be sold. So they were sold to lots of picture houses for $1 on the condition that it could never be used on the road. It could only be used for production. And then once they had finished with them, they had to be scrapped. So once Knight Rider finished, that Trans Am was crushed.
Let me just add to that. That is absolutely true. There was a train. There was a wreck with about 5 of them on it. It wasn't just one. There was 5 of them. And you're right. I didn't realize it paid $1 or £1. But you're right that all those cars were destroyed. But there were several cars that were screen used that they didn't destroy that weren't part of the train wreck. It's cool. There's a cool
no, that's
channel
true.
on.
That's true. No, that's also true. There are other stunt cars that are like the Pontiac that screen used or a hero car. Those hero cars were definitely scrapped, but there are certain examples that still exist. You're right. Trivia. I love Knight Rider too.
Channel.
Everybody loves Knight Rider. Let's geek out some more. Anybody going to object from G Plus or Discord?
I take it you found out the Knight Rider Historians
Yeah,
channel
I
on
did.
YouTube
Yeah.
too.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's quality.
Yeah, it's great. No one else is geeking out with us though, Anthony, so we might have to draw close to this bummer, eh?
I'm just so glad that it wasn't the Shatner equivalent because that would have devastated me.
Yeah, why couldn't Arwen be into someone like Hasselhoff, someone actually cool?
Hasselhoff's interesting because, like, cool was what he was when he did Knight Rider. Then he went uncool when he did Baywatch, and now he's gone back to being cool for being uncool.
Hold on, you're telling me being on set... Hold on, I've got to slow down. On set
With all
with
these
beautiful
gorgeous
women all day, you're telling him, bum move, Hasselhoff. You having me on?
Yeah, he
Yeah, I
wasn't
don't
cool
get
in
that,
Baywatch.
Anthony. Get that.
Do
Sorry,
you know why he wasn't cool in Baywatch? because he was having the middle-age stretch, wasn't he? He was at the beginning of the middle-age stretch, and he kept sucking it in, and it was really obvious.
Yeah, you're right. At this stage in my life, I really do feel that if someone came along and said, would you like to spend all day on the beach with beautiful women, being paid for it and filming stuff, I'd just say, you know what, I might not look cool. People might consider me as having a midlife crisis. Now I'm going to turn you down.
No, that's super
he wasn't
cool.
cool, though. He was cool in Knight Rider, and then he went uncool, and now he's back to being cool for being uncool, which is weird, but it's true.
I don't know.
How tall is that dude?
I don't know. Pretty tall, I guess.
6'5".
All right.
6'5".
He was probably less cool during Knight Rider because he was such a bad actor back then.
He was
No,
all right.
that was quality. That was 80s style acting. That was the height of it at the time. That was brilliant.
I agree with Anthony. That's the way he acted. It's the 80s, man. It's the 80s.
Plus, I'm pretty sure Hasselhoff's a flat earther.
Yeah, I think he might be too.
Okay, but what Anthony just demonstrated was exactly what happened yesterday. He's saying that if this was done with someone I have a connection with from the movies and the topic. So with Arwen, it was Star Trek and Captain Kirk. And with Anthony, it's Knight Rider and cars and things like that. So the whole point is, okay, I know it's fake, but listen, I want to have good feelings about this guy on other fronts. And now if I have to admit this is fake, then everything is fake.
That's not what Anthony is saying, though, Tent. I'm sorry.
I think
That's
what I'm
not what
trying to
Anthony-
say is that when I was about 10, I peeped behind the curtain the way Nathan describes it, and I saw all the set behind it, and it was like, that car's got no engine. How did they do that? And that's what happened with Arwen yesterday. He peeped behind the curtain and didn't like it.
Well, I read what you said different, Anthony. I read that when you saw Mitch Buchanan on the beach with Pamela Anderson, right, because that was his name in Baywatch, that was the moment you found out he wasn't Michael Knight.
That's another valid interpretation.
No, he was just undercover.
Where was Kit?
In the
He's
beach
been
house.
reclaimed.
Chilling.
Kit's been reclaimed. They
Why
put
is
that
that
together.
telling me that the DeLorean is not a time machine?
I'm sure you could convert
No.
Kit to a time machine. You just need a flux capacitor.
Kid could do anything.
Well, I don't know about time travel, but I'm sure he could be retrofitted. Just need to bring in the A-team and chuck them in a barn with a few bits and bobs. They'd have it done in no time.
Yeah.
All he had to do is hook up with Doc Brown, and Kit would be a time traveler.
I would like to say that Arwen is awesome. I think he's one of the smartest people I know. He's very clever, if not irritating sometimes with it.
I totally agree. Arwen is basically ace, but in the interest of balance, Arwen's a dick. We all hate him. He's gone on strike over some guy he's never met who's fat and old. How dare he?
Yeah, but
That's
what
I
this
said
does
to him,
demonstrate.
Chat, when you're one of the smartest guys I know, and you're being really silly about this. And this is before I knew he went on strike. I didn't know that.
There's a bigger picture, though. What Arwen demonstrated yesterday is the same pain and cogdiss that ball earthers have when we show them things like gravity's not a force. How do you have gas pressure? Arwen was doing the baller thing yesterday.
Jesus, you're going to really
good
piss him off
analogy,
with that
you're right.
statement. If there's one thing that will send him into an absolute rage, that will be the statement. Thank you for that, Sleeping Warrior. That'll piss him off no end, using him as that example.
That was a good one.
It's
Well,
true.
I
I didn't mean to piss him off.
No,
I find it funny.
I just want to get that clear. No, I don't. I'm not suggesting for one second that you are intentionally trying to antagonise Arwen, but I think I know Arwen reasonably well, and I think you comparing the cog dis of a baller to that cog dis that he had will be the thing that pisses him off the most. And it's absolutely true. I've now got to restate that because I didn't want it to seem like you were trying to piss him off. No, you're making a good point, and everyone agreed with you.
Well, what I find really strange is the one day Arwen is after stating he's not going to be here. It's the very same day that Tony turns up.
They're the same person.
They're both Will Smith.
I knew it.
Tony can't be interrupted by Arwen now when he speaks because he's not going to be here.
I think that's just a coincidence.
flowing conversation.
So did I hear right? Arwen's on strike.
I use that term, yes.
I thought
kind
he
of-
just had to announce and relieve that he was actually a former member of the fundamentalist church of Shatner. Do you know what I mean? And that's all he was up for. He's actually on strike now.
Well, he made a declaration that he's not coming on.
Yesterday, I was blown away by Arwen's ability to defend Shatner. And I've listened to a bit on his show today. And he's doing the same.
I've heard that there's a rumor that he's actually tied himself to the Johan Cruyff Arena in, it's Ajax's home stadium. He's tied himself to that with a banner saying Nathan is a bastard.
No, let's not take the piss out of him. Right. What Adam
Taking the
said,
piss out of you.
I'll roll with what Adam said. Adam said he's bowled over by his inability to defend Shatner. Well, Arwen's now pissed off and expressing it at me, and he's got every right to, and I'm going to let him, because he's my mate, and I'm going to stop you guys from taking the piss out of him in this scenario. Whatever he's got to deal with, for whatever reason, regardless of how benign or funny we might find it, he's still our mate, and we still like the guy. So let's not take the piss out of him, because I still want to use the useful examples. And I'll highlight how irritating it is for Arwen, just so he knows that I do empathise. And that's the only reason I'm highlighting it, not so it's made more clear that he'll be pissed off with it. Because it's a good point. But when those are the ones that cut deep, right? The ones where, well, it's true. Yeah, but that's why it's more irritating than anything. Right? So...
I'm not taking the piss.
I know you're not.
Genuinely aghast and was shocked yesterday that what we've just pointed out there, it was all obvious to us. But Arwen, I'm shocked he's still actually having to deal with that, and he's still in the same position as yesterday. And to find he's not here today is unusual. I like to say I'm more taken aback by Arwen's response. It's actually shocked me, and he is my mate. And I'm not taking the piss. I am saying to him, bloody hell. You've shocked me in terms of how entrenched what you're prepared to do to defend Shatner. So it was just very straight. He's not defending space, and that's what's blown me away. Not defending Bezos, just Shatner. The rest of it's bollocks, except William Shatner's not a lie. And I like the man, but we are in the point of ignoring the bloody obvious here. So I'm
He'll
shocked.
deal with it. Probably 24 hours. But, at the moment...
today.
He's pissed off. How it came up might be the thing that's pissed off about, whatever. It doesn't matter. But, what he said to me was, I'm not going to be on for a whole week. Fuck you. That's what he said.
Well, this isn't the exact same thing as a baller either. I wouldn't go so far as to say this is the same reaction ballers give, because it was an idolization of Shatner. It was very personal to him. And that's why it bothered him so much.
Right. You might see similar reactions when you do put down certain astronauts. If we were in the 70s wave of flat Earth and people were taking the piss out of recently crowned heroes of America, then you can imagine that the reaction might be the same. Especially if people... I'll give you an example. I'm going to drop Dave Weiss right in it now. Dave Weiss has made it clear on many occasions that he didn't realise that space was fake when he first came to flat Earth. That came later or further down the line. He just hadn't contemplated it. You don't know what you don't know or what you should be contemplating. So, the order of events seems a bit odd, but you're like, well, you just hadn't contemplated it. So, given that the order of release for certain people on the anti-flat Earth side can release a lot of their beliefs about how things should work on a sphere and or substitute them for things that don't match the rhetoric so that they can retain a single thread of something that means that their faith is still just about there. This is what we're talking about in the pre-show, right? The pain that must cause over a long period of time. Anthony, you might have some words to say on this. So, given that we've been around for a long while now, and we've seen a lot of cognitive pain from the anti-flat Earth side of the argument, what do you think the long-term effects of that might be on people of that disposition? I don't know, I think it might fuck them up over the long term. Yeah, I think you might be right, Anthony. That's basically the sentiment that we said in the pre-show. Yeah, I agree. Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you for your input. Glad to have you,
Sorry,
Anthony, as ever.
I was making a brew in the kitchen. What did I miss?
Nothing. Me taking the piss out of you. I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you'd ask me a question, and I
did, but it was a long question that you didn't get. I will repeat it. Mike 808's just sent a super chat, so I'll repeat the question after I shout him out. So, you religious fundies, the zealotry, you guys must have claiming a decade, the 80s, is the cause of David Hasselhoff's bad acting. Mike, I mean, I can't really disagree with you from the super chat. It is an absolute outrage.
He's actually a really good singer. I think he is, anyway. Anyway, your question, Nathan.
The question was, we've been around, I preface it, we've been around for a long while, and in that long while, we've seen a lot of cognitive pain from our opponents. You don't have to nod along. And the cognitive pain is now worthy of contemplation in terms of its effects long term. So I'm asking, what do you think might be, given that we're already pretty much long term, might be the effects on our opponents? That's it.
They'll just ignore it. It's like finding out that your partner's cheating, or finding out that your next door neighbour stole off you, and you find it out, and it's like you have to confront it, or you have to ignore it. They're going to ignore it.
You can't ignore your wife cheating. You can't ignore your wife cheating forever. You know, that's not what's going to happen.
I know, but I'm just using it as an example.
How long did you ignore it for, John? No? This is not personal experience?
Yeah. Well, the stuff prior to the Black Swan, like, I could compartmentalize it all and say, you know, I was measuring a radius, and then put everything through that lens. Now that that's gone, there's nothing really to hold any of their claims to reality. I don't know how they're doing it, and it can't be healthy.
How did you compartmentalize gravity not being a force? You must have heard of that before you come across Black Swan.
Check out the lawyer.
Well,
immediately starts pulling on somebody who does have the experience close to hand, rather than just answering the question. Well, I just want your opinion, Anthony. I'm sorry, John. I just want your opinion on what you think might be the long-term effects on our fundy opponents for having to deal with this cog dis for this long.
There's three types, isn't there? You've got your hardcore protagonists, like Jeremy, for example. He'll probably commit suicide because he'd never be able to consider the possibility that he'll ever have to admit that he was wrong all this time, and he'd have to do that publicly. He would never accept that. So suicide is likely for somebody like Jeremy, like Red's Rhetoric, like Wolfie or whoever, because they're too much of an idiot to stand up and say, do you know what? I was wrong. I didn't realise. Then you've got the average bloke that'll be like, yeah, I think it's a ball, but, you know, I'm 50-50. It's not that big of a deal to me. And then you've got the other guys that were totally and utterly deceived, and they'll fall out with it. A bit like Arwin, they'll fall out with everybody because of it. And they'll probably go home and batter the dog because they can't handle it, and they'll have a meltdown. And well, I don't know, what do you do with them? But it's three types of ball earther. It's not easy to predict. There's not a stereotype for them all.
Well, I don't know. All of those fall under one category. We described it as going to the nut house. I mean, you took it to the end, extreme. So you've had the depression, you've had the mania, you've had it all, and then you're on the suicide. Man, you were right at the end of the end of that path, man. You were further over the cliff than at the end of the path, if you know what I mean. But there we go. That's kind of what I was hinting at, and that's the conclusion we came to in the pre-show. Now, if you have been affected by suicide or anything other mental disability, then I'm sure there's helplines out there. So I'm not one of those channels, as much as we're postulating this at this point.
Well,
sorry, John.
Hold on a sec. The reason I said that in the pre-show about them coming to attack, say, you, Nathan, is because they've already devalued flat earthers as people. That's how they talk to them as such trash. So it's not a hard step to think that if they're willing to kill themselves, then the idea of them attacking one of us isn't that far away either.
Right. Again, something we covered in the pre-show. I mean, this is right on the cut. This is as fine on the edge of what I'd consider to be tolerable by YouTube as we can get, by the way. What's going through my mind to terms and service. And go on.
While we're on the subject, and before Brian gets in, because I know he's trying, Can you go to Master B and show those 3 pictures? Go on, Brian.
Thank you, Dent. Well, what I would say is that the direction it's going to take is people like Wolfie and whoever the other main people are, Fight the Flat or whatever. They're just going to attack the more well-known people that they've debated against, which is going to be most of the people on this panel, and other people outside of it, obviously Bev and Brandon, whoever else. They're just going to try and personally attack those people more and more, and they're going to think further and further into absolute ridiculousness in what they believe and what they're claiming. Because I actually have people claiming, and I'm going to say it again because it doesn't seem, I don't mean this in an insulting way, but I'm just going to be honest with you. It hasn't seemed to sink in with you. I've had people claiming that there's curved radius for circles. That's what I've had people, and people supporting them. Well-known people on our opposition side. So
if you wanted to support the geometric illiterate, there is a PayPal link below that will go to a worthy cause that actually pokes fun out of the geometric illiterate. I don't know what I'm saying. Support this channel. That flat fellow sends a super chat saying Nathan doing voices deserves a super chat. Well, thank you very much. What have we got up 10th?
Well, we have, and I listed the link in the channel. This is another Flat Earth channel, and it's got a picture of the windows from the capsule looking out, and you could distinctly see curvature of the Earth because of the view of the straight shot there into the window to the right. If you go to the next picture, it's the same capsule, but on the ground, but now the ground is curving.
Oh, didn't we cover this yesterday? This capsule, this is a set. So you're telling me
that's the whole point.
You're telling me that
no, that's the whole point.
You're telling me that the images that are projected onto the green screen claim to be windows in the set where they had high wire presents curvature of the horizon.
I'm just saying that when people take time, just like when they have the show, everybody's saying he went up there, he did all this stuff, and then we had our stay. Well, I started searching to see if somebody else was covering the subject like we were, and I found this channel, and then he shows that whether you're on the ground or supposedly up in space, the curvature is there through the windows, all right? But then the last picture is what I want to talk about. I think this is a great shot because this is Captain Kirk from the backside, looking out. Now this, if you're a Star Trek fan, you know that's his captain's chair. Just go into it. Come on, you know what I'm saying. And he's looking out. And the first thing out of his mouth when he comes down in that whole fiasco, he doesn't mention it. Nobody mentions it. Earth curve. But they mention Mother Earth and how fragile that blue thin line is. Are you kidding me? One time to go that high, if you actually did it, you're looking out that window like it shows here, and if you saw it, that'd be the first thing out of your mouth.
Meanwhile, the horizon's not Earth curve. We only have one horizon, and the horizon in the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking, Earth curve calculator is physical and geometric, is claimed to be blocking boats and buildings, and measurable with those maths. The horizon we experience in reality, that would be the apparent position where the sky meets the land or sea, is not a physical geometric limitation to your view. It is merely apparent, horizontal, and not physical. The horizon's not Earth curve. So regardless of what's presented on the CGI claimed to be windows from a set with high wire, the horizon's not Earth curve.
I'll say it again. People are claiming that radius lines are curved. How many times I say this before I get some reaction out of you?
Yeah, Brian.
Fourth time in about a week.
I don't know what I can do. I'll put together a fund to help support the geometrically illiterate. Yeah? and then I'll encourage people to support it. In the meantime, while I'm developing that fund to help the geometrically illiterate, you can smash the PayPal link, and I'm sure I'll be inspired to make a committee, maybe turn it into a charity, and eventually help the anti-flat earth minority understand that a straight line is what you will require to have a radius, and that it isn't bent. But in the meantime, yes, there are people out there, Brian, you've said it twice, it is important to stress, that will state a radius is bent. Now, these people are thick.
Didn't we have...
sorry.
Right, didn't we have Bob the fallacy guy say something about a circle that doesn't represent a circle?
He said circles don't have radii.
It just... This is like Bev coming up with bendizontal. They have no straight lines.
Nathan, are you finishing bang on 3 o'clock, or are you going to overrun?
Am I going to overrun 3 o'clock? What are you asking?
Are you going to shut off in the next 2 minutes? Because I want to do something, but if you're going to shut off, I'm not the time.
I'm literally... I mean, he asks me this when I'm on camera. I've got my remote, I've got my lights, I've got everything ready. What do you want to do? Go ahead.
Quick presentation about Wolfie. Let me screen share.
Just do it. You don't have to ask him. Just do it. We try to keep him on.
No, he doesn't want me to say with that while he's got his lined-up presentation about to go out live. So he's asked us. That's fair enough. Go ahead, Anthony.
I'm just trying to present my entire screen. There we go. I'll do. Share now. And then which screen? That one. All right. So let me know when it's on.
Well, tell me when it's looking nice.
All right. Hang on.
Well, at least one thing came out of this. We got Nathan to confess with that.
All right. 10th, are you paying attention?
I am.
All right. So here we go, Nathan. Present it if you would.
I am.
All right. So Wolfie's video, a flat earth claim debunked in 33 seconds. It's only like 33 seconds long. It's only a week old, or less than a week old. And basically what his claim is that this circle of altitude, when you actually put a glass over an orange, this is what he considers to be a debunk. But what he's completely and utterly ignoring is that when he does this, any second now, which is going to be there, he's got a curve in the middle, right? So there's no circle of equal altitude. So when I tried to point this out to him, all he could do was call me names. So I just deleted my comment and just went away and ignored him. But do feel free to go and watch this video, because Wolfie's trying to tell everybody that the circle that the glass creates of the orange is a circle of equal altitude. 10th, what do you think?
I'm back to my discovery, and the only thing that matters, a sextant can only work over a flat surface. It's an angle measuring device. All these other things have nothing to do with that tool. If he wants to say this is what he wants, he can't use a sextant for it, because it's a right angle triangle for triangulation from the GP of the star from the zenith position, which might be 3,000-4,000 miles away. So if he wants to say this is the same circle of equal altitude, he needs a right angle. He needs a right angle from the observer from the intercept line with the azimuth direction to the GP. And the tool itself can never work with a curved surface. So he can't tie this to a sextant. I'd like to see the tool he wants to use when all along they've been saying it's the sextant.
Effectively, you could just say that the circle of equal altitude shown in the picture doesn't have an equal altitude.
Yeah,
Well, that's
precisely.
Precisely,
Anthony.
precisely.
The circle that he's showing doesn't have a radius. It's not two-dimensional. It doesn't have a baseline, which is what 10th's saying. In order to use the tool, one of the lines to get an angle has to be straight. That's your zero line, your baseline. Well, they described it in the same, or whoever this is describing it the same as Bob, the science guy, tried to describe it. He said it was a semi-chord. Well, if you draw around where the glass is and then slice off the top section, yeah? Well, then moving to the center from the outside edge, that's the radius. It's still got to be flat and straight, but they want to say it's a semi-chord. Well, that's the area that they dissect through this glass if you were to chop off what the glass is pressing on the orange. Well, that's still
Yeah, so-
flat to have a circle of equal altitude. So to say, well, this is how it represents itself, it's no. You still need a straight flat baseline. So therefore, you've got to have the dissection of this, a chord line, and then say that the radius to the centre of that flat circle is what you'll use for your flat baseline. It's just not representative of the surface. Go ahead, Anthony.
It's worse than that. I'll go after Anthony, please.
Go
I
ahead,
was just going
Anthony.
to say, when you say like if you identify the circle and then you use half a chord to get to the radius point, if you will, that's essentially making a curve flat.
Yes.
But we don't have the bulge. This is getting rid of the bulge by doing that, right?
Yeah, you're slicing off the top to make it flat, to give you, well, what's geometrically required, a straight line to the centre, which is your radius value, and then you can say that the chord that you drew through your sphere acquires you your area of equal altitude. But as you correctly identified right at the start, what's under the glass? Not an area of equal altitude, is the answer.
Well, it's actually worse.
Go ahead,
worse than
Brian.
that. Because it's on this very video that I left my comment that people are claiming a curved radius. I corrected Wolfie and everyone else on this. I pointed out that they're going to need chords to go through their sphere to get these angles for a start. And those chords or semi-chords are going to be less in distance than the arcs or half arcs that reside above them, right? And I have been nothing but attacked, and they've claimed that a radius of a circle in spherical geometry is a curved line. That's what I'm getting.
Okay,
and
let me
Wolfie
just
has attacked me himself.
Before you repeat it, sorry,
addressed
just before you repeat it, I want to
Yeah.
show what you're talking about. Ah, damn, there's something that appears over the top of it. I can just about do it without this stupid G plus telling me whether or not I want to pin it. Yeah, that's better. That's great. So if you look at what Brian's saying is, if you take this circle and then slice the top off, that's your chord line, right? Well, a chord line with half of that chord line being from here to the centre isn't the same distance as the top line down to the outside edge of the glass. Now that curved line is longer than the radius if you take the chord, which is to slice off what's under the glass. Well, that line to the centre is shorter in distance than a line assumed to be curving over the top of it by way of a presupposition of a heliocentric sphere world. Brian's saying that gives you a massive discrepancy because the line I'm drawing my mouse over now, that curved line, this is why they say you have curved radius, this nonsense, is because they've got an assumption of a curved line on the actual topography of the land, and to do the maths with a straight baseline being 0 on a sextant, you've got to take a chord line from the edge of the two sides of the glass, dissecting the sphere, slicing the top of it. Well, that radius value is shorter than the arc length over the top. That's Brian's point. I just want to make that clear with my mouse so you can see it nice and clearly what Brian's describing. I'll let Brian summarise, and then I think Anthony wants to get something in. We're still live, by the way.
Yeah, they're actually denying the chord. I have not had one of them say, "Oh, that makes sense." They're actually denying the chord that they need. They're actually denying that chord now, and stating that the radius from they're stating a curved radius from the center of the orange down to the perimeter of the glass. That's
Curved
what they're actually
radius.
claiming, and
Curved
they're
radius.
denying the chord.
Yeah. So, no, there is no chord. What we've actually got is a curved radius. Okay, bye-bye, off you go to the nut house.
I just want to finish off by saying that, you know how we have like gas pressure out a container pinned on conspiracy cats, and Bob Nodell's got this claim of Earth rotation, and they always say, thanks, Bob. We should always now in future reference Wolfie, and we'll just say, sextants don't work on a globe. Thanks, Wolfie.
With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you tuned in. Smash the super chat. Thanks to Unitox Femu, who smashed the super chat just before the end, for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either primary or stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Even with that, you don't get a circle of equal altitude with the chord.
No, you don't. You don't. It's like the whole thing. Like what they should do, and I hate to say this, but I might have to make the video, and I hate to do it because I shouldn't have to do this for grown adults. Is make a circle of equal altitude on a Gleason's map, right? Just make any circle, right? Then put that same circle, right? Measure the radius, put that same circle, turn it into a globe, put that same circle in the same positions. Will the radius be the same? No. Do you know what I mean? It's like
you don't need to. They do it. That's what they do. That's the essence of their presentations, though, isn't it, Brian? That's what they do.
Yeah, that is true, Nathan. Yeah, that's true.
It's just nonsense. They are geometrically illiterate.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and
you need to have a longitude line, which is from you to the target. That line is the 90-degree line, and your circle of equal altitude, that is your latitude line.
Yeah, and if that's the circumstance on a sphere, how do they acquire a baseline with a 0 for the angle measurement that they're using the sextant to get? Answer: those presuppositions don't allow them to acquire that. But yeah, you're right, George. That's what they presuppose. In essence, they presuppose a sphere, right? Yeah. But then they can't get a straight line for one of the angles.
I'd like to see a video or a picture of a navigator holding a wine glass. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He holds a sextant.
Yeah. When is this done? Who was this that just did this? I wasn't really paying that close attention. Did you say it was Wolfie?
Wolfie. Yeah.
Sorry, Wolfie.
Wolfie.
You find me an example of you using this. Yeah? Show us. You were on your aeroplane with an orange and a glass, working out areas of equal altitude. Maybe that's unreasonable. Maybe you don't. It's far more sophisticated than that in a plane, I'm sure. Show me anybody doing this ever in the entirety of history.
I'll show you something in Master B. I got some pictures, and when you went out with your outro, I was trying to get it in, but we'll do it in the after show.
One more thing, what Wolfie's trying to do is drag you into a model. That's why he's presenting the orange. Yep. You know, like he really desperately needs to get this into a debate about models, is what he's trying to do.
Yeah, it's the metaphorical equivalent of Neil deGrasse Tyson holding up the sphere-shaped beach ball and slapping it. We are gonna beg this question.
Maybe he thought because the word naval came before orange that it was by the Navy.
Got to get a tumbleweed sound effect.
Well, listen, people have sailed over the Rhine. Come on. High-powered puns. High-powered puns. All right, you there, Nathan?
Pardon?
Master B, it got some pictures.
Oh, got more. Okay.
Yeah, push those buttons.
Done.
Which one are you showing first?
Angle to the lighthouse.
Yes. All right, this is called a vertical angle. And this is done when it's close to shore. Not to be confused with the horizontal angle, where you turn your sextant sideways and get the angle in degrees between two objects on shore. Okay, but a vertical angle. And then the second picture of the sun having the GP directly over somewhere on the earth, just like the lighthouse was directly over somewhere on the earth, is also considered a vertical angle. They both, if you can go back and forth between these two pictures, this validates the right angle measurement, because that's what they're doing on near shore to get triangulation, and that's what they have to do in the open ocean when they don't have a lighthouse on shore, off the shore, because you got the lighthouse in the sky that puts a GP position somewhere on the earth. It has to give you that 90-degree right angle to give you that baseline. If you go to the third picture, this is what they're trying to say is working on a curved surface. And this isn't even a doctor's slide. This is one of their slides. Now, this is so silly, but I'm glad they put it up there, because this is what's happening, but they're saying it's happening on the curved surface. This is laughable. Everyone see that, right? With the right angle on the sphere, the earth, with the ship. This is laughable. Next slide. From a Navy video showing how you must have that right angle, the GP of the star, and then the Navy ship. I mean, this is not an orange with a wine glass. Okay, the next slide shows when you've got three different stars and all the circle of equal altitudes meet at one point, and there's your ship. And so now you have a fix. You see the right angle? You see any orange and wine glasses here? Next slide, showing from the same Navy video, two GPs of two different stars, two different circle of equal altitudes, all right angles. And there's the fix. It's got to be one of the two places that the circles cross that you're at. The next slide shows it as well. Further out into the horizon, the GP is a right angle to the apparent position of the boat. Are they blind or willfully dishonest? Or in this case, woefully dishonest.
Yeah, I just going to say that.
Or stupid. Or stupid.
Yeah, and they have those GPs pointing to a center of a sphere, which is silly.
How can they put the 90-degree symbol box at the bottom of the GP of a star or a sun and the baseline going to the observer with the sextant and say that represents a 90-degree right angle over a curved surface?
They can't.
There's no such.
You can't have that. That's not a possibility. If the surface between where it says GP on this diagram, the last one, if that line, my mouse, between here and here was curved, this wouldn't be at 90 degrees anymore. Simple as that. Can't be done.
Yeah, I'm afraid if they want to use the sextant to defend the globe, they're going to lose on every turn. They got to find another tool, but not the sextant.
Nathan, let me ask you a question about Wolfie. Every time I have any conversation with him at all, he always flips the conversation back to flight maps. Now, obviously, he's a pilot and he thinks that they're a strong argument. I realize that the map doesn't mean it's the terrain. And I think that the flight maps, however they do or don't work, don't actually prove anything, because it's just like arguing flat maps are balls and balls are flat maps, because they don't represent the shape. They just represent how you get there. Represent being the key word. Do you think that he flips back to flight plans or flight charts as a distraction technique, or do you think it's because he actually thinks that they prove something?
I don't know. How much drop are on his flight charts?
I don't even know what I understand the argument that he thinks is strong is to do with flight charts, but I don't know what drop means in that context.
Well, the claim is hold on. The claim is we've got Earth curve, right? Well, if the claim is we've got Earth curve, and he's saying I've got maps, okay, show me the Earth curve on the map. What's Earth curve? Well, it's the drop, right? Earth being a sphere. Show me that on your map. Easy. It's not on there. It's flat. If he's got a grid reference system on it, it's a flat reference system. So, do I give a crap what his affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy when it comes to a sphere with use of his map is going to be? No. I want him to show me Earth curve, drop, on his map. Simple. And if it's on his map and he's saying he's got to negotiate it, well, show us how that's done. Easy. Brian?
Exactly, Nathan.
Brian, well, I was just about to bring you in. You're way ahead of me, Brian. You comment. I don't need to lead you. I'm sure I don't need to lead you. Maybe I do. We'll see.
No. That's exactly it, Nathan. Basically, what he's using on a regular basis is GPS, which uses a three-dimensional Cartesian coordinate system, which something that doesn't work on a sphere. They actually have a specific version for aerospace, so it's actually northeast down as opposed to east north up, because so they don't get mixed up with any ground coordinates. So he's using a flat Earth three-dimensional coordinate system all the time, and the planes he's flying, they're not planes. The chord line of the wings has to stay above 0 degrees horizontal at all times for them to have 100% positive lift, which they always need. That's why airplanes fly, commercial airliners fly with the nose of the airline, the nose of the airplane, 3 to 4 degrees above horizontal for thousands of miles at a time. They're
Perfect.
They can't design.
That's where I was hoping you'd go next. Exactly. So what we need to see, Anthony, is the drop that Earth is claimed to have, and then the measurement of the negotiation of the drop by the aeroplane, because that's what you need to show us. Beyond that, when they affirm the consequent, beg the question, and say that the maps are somehow part of that formal logical fallacy, it's irrelevant. If Earth's sphere, it'll be if Earth's a sphere, then I will follow the map as follows. I follow the map as follows, therefore the Earth's a sphere. That's why it'll be, Anthony.
Yeah, I agree.
Could I just add one small
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
in there?
Yeah, round this out. Go ahead. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. There's two things that he needs, to him or anyone else needs to come up with if they're making that claim about flying around a sphere. They need to come up with first the pitch data that shows that they're accounting for the curvature, and then the thrust data that shows they're accounting for the drop. Because drop is accounted for with thrust, and curvature is accounted for with pitch. So they're the two things they need to come up with to prove that they're flying around a sphere. And we're not even bringing the movement of the Earth underneath them, the supposed rotating globe. We're not even bringing that.
Let's not go there. Yeah, but yes, that's what they've got to show us, Anthony. Meanwhile, so it's not left hanging, they don't have any drop on any of the maps, and he's definitely flying across a plane on his grid system, nose up, to retain lift for the journey. So they're not descending over a drop that's not mapped. Earth is flat as far as a plane is concerned.
Did you just say Earth is a plane if you're flying on a plane?
I said Earth is flat as far as a plane, an aeroplane is dealing with a flat terrain. That's what they're negotiating, and that is what they are flying over.
I just plan on the word plane. You know, it flies over a plane.
Planes fly on the plane. That's correct.
Well, we got Brian here. They're having a little struggle, and I want Brian's input on this. With longitude, latitude. They think just by saying longitude, latitude, that proves a globe. I kid you not. They just have to say longitude, latitude. Forget the orange, the wine glass, forget R, forget any of that. Just mention longitude and latitude, that proves a globe. Now, from my understanding, Brian, those are just lines on the map for coordinate system. Am I right?
Yeah, that's all they are, and what they don't even realize is the majority of the time, when they're using their what they call the WGS84, they're using it in the flattening and not in the oblate spheroid version.
Right, you're saying after the flattening factor has been applied, not using the equivalent of the figure of Earth.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they're taking coordinates directly from surveying or from GPS, then they're going to be converted to the flattening of the WGS84 from Cartesian coordinates.
Correct.
But what they don't realize is they're using that map, the WGS84, in its flattening version. They're not using it like they think they're using it all the time as an oblate spheroid. They're not. They're using it in the flattening version all the time.
Yeah, they have to apply something called the flattening factor to put it into that format.
Yeah, like they think that it's been brought all the way then to the oblate spheroid version, and they're using that all the time. They're not using that all the time. They're using the flattening version.
Yeah, they can't, can they? You can't drop that onto a Cartesian grid system.
No, I mean, why would they turn their WGS into an 84 into an oblate spheroid and try and use it that way when that has absolutely zero relationship to reality, and it makes everything more complicated? It's much easier to use the latitude and longitude grid in the Gleason's map type way. In the flattening
the answer, hold on.
Or the EE map.
Hold on. Well, 10th man has the answer to that. Well, because they need it to be negotiated in that way on a flat grid system. Because when you're acquiring straight baselines, two horizons to acquire GPs of stars with 45 degrees, with 90 degrees at the base of the star, moving with a flat line that you acquired with that 0 degree baseline from the sextant, every map's got to be flat for that to work ever. So why are all maps flat? That's why. Because that's how you negotiate the terrain. So you distort the world, you put it into a sphere model, and then you put it back onto a globe projection, flat map. Well, that will distort the land in terms of where it's laid out on the map, but you can keep the magnetic reference system and the grid that you'll need to actually negotiate it with when you take any measurements to the stars. So it has to be flat, even when they say it's a sphere. That's why all maps are flat.
Well, only a few minutes ago, we went through the reasons why airplanes only traverse a flat horizontal world underneath them. Well, it's the same for seafaring. They use the latitude and longitude grid all the time for seafaring, but they do what's known as plain sailing, where they pre-assume that they're always on flat. That's what they always do. And then when it comes to the use of the sextant with circles of equal altitude, they can't not but presume absolute flat.
Yeah, to make a geometric measurement that's got a straight baseline, it must be flat to work. I mean, it really is game over, because any assertions that have come, if we didn't have the black swan argument in place, would be, yeah, so we just look and get a straight line. What's the problem? Well, because 21 months of telling us it's refracted, the curved surface that you've claimed at 8 inches per mile squared from every vantage point isn't giving you a straight line.
I remember when I first came into this topic, and I remember there was one particular ball earther, I can't remember who it was now, but he used to always drop in randomly. How does a sextant work on a flat Earth? And I just completely ignored it, because it's like, I don't know, how does it work on a ball Earth? At the time, I just didn't take any notice of it, as none of us really. It was one of those throwaway flippant comments that someone makes just to stoke the fire, as it were. But now it's like, now we're talking about it, it's like, yeah, you need flat lines for that, don't you? Straight, flat, non-curving lines. How does that work on a globe? It's just, does anybody remember who that was? Nathan, do you remember who it was?
I have no idea. But that is the kind of thing that they'll do, right? Throw out their weakest argument and ask you to explain it on a flat Earth. Not appreciating that they don't actually have an explanation for how they'd even acquire an angle for the tool in the first place on a globe. It fails on its arse immediately.
Yeah, that's why they're always like that. What they're focusing on mostly, I find myself, what I'm running into mostly online, is the Polaris argument. That's what they're focusing on now all the time. Right now, it's like, why would you focus on that right now, considering that the sextant argument has just annihilated, absolutely obliterated your globe. Why would you focus on the Polaris argument?
I was trying to get that level guy in on chat. Basically,
I'll tell you. Hold on. Let me just answer Brian, because part of the premise of the Polaris argument, Adam, you still here, is the transition from the angle measurement at your feet to the angle measurement being a twisting of a protractor at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. So it's part of the bait and switch. If they can get us to talk about that 1 degree transition, they're talking about their twisting a sphere through 1 degree, rather than you taking an angle measurement with a flat line. So if they can just forego the idea of measuring the flat line at all and move straight to the assumption of the 1 degree movement, then you've basically, what does QE call this? You've whistled past the graveyard.
Yeah,
You're going to need that for that.
That is exactly. See, they can see the thing about that argument, the Polaris argument, that they keep coming up with is they switch to their nautical miles, which is based off of the center of their sphere. These nautical miles, right? That's what these. So each 1 degree away from Polaris on their sphere from the center is 60 nautical miles. 69 statute, but 60 nautical. But the problem they have is the Gleason's map exists and the AE map exists. And the problem with that is that the reason they exist is because the longitude lines are the exact same length and distance, whether flat or curved. So they have a massive problem because they can claim 69 or 60 nautical miles per degree, right? But the problem is they're using the longitude lines to claim these, whereas that's a distance along a longitude line. But the longitude line is the same exact distance, curved or flat.
Right, but the measurement itself takes place from the surface. And it's a measuring tool that's measuring your angle with straight lines. So them saying the 1 degree every 69 or every 60 is just their way of repositioning the argument to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, and the transition they use, regardless of how irrelevant, is the longitude and latitude lines, bringing us back onto 10th man's original point.
Yeah, see, they have to pre-assume that like, it's very simple, right, with them. It's like, okay, where I've gone to with them, I've tried to make it as simple as possible. Okay, how have you verified that this is a geometric drop as opposed to an optical angle change? And I say it that way on purpose, or I'm using the word angle change. And they can't come back to me with anything there because it is an optical angle change. Because that's all that's happening. If you want to find out, right, in reality, the angle to Polaris from whatever position you are north of the equator, you have to use a sextant.
Exactly.
And you have to do the Clairfix correction.
They can't come back to you because you're preventing their transition from ground to centre of sphere by questioning them in that manner. I mean, it's genius. I love it. But they can't, can they? Because in terms of your optical angle measurement, you're saying, how can I assume that I twist a sphere through 1 degree for every 69 statute miles when the measurement is taken from the surface with straight lines and angles and a sextant? The answer is, you can't. There is no transition. It's just 2 different suitcases. They just hope to cause enough commotion when they swap one out for the other.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how did you verify it's a geometric drop as opposed to an optical angle change? They can't deny that because then they're not even claiming an angle. You know, how do you know your angle to Polaris? Well, you have to take it off the surface, don't you? So that's the end of that.
Exactly. Well, do you want to know how they get around that? Because I've encountered that also. So what Rumpus does, it says, well, you start by having your Polaris measurement taken at 90 degrees to your position or at your zenith. Can you imagine what do you think my next question of him was, Brian, when he said that, well, if you start at Polaris, it's at your zenith?
Well, I would say ask him, how did he prove that Polaris is at your zenith?
When was he at, what are you saying, when was he at the North Pole with Polaris at his zenith? Oh, he didn't have that information, shockingly.
Yeah, he was supposed to come back. So remember, I remember being on the show the day he was supposed to come back with the evidence. You and QE nailed him to the wall.
That's
come
correct.
Back with the evidence.
I remember.
Yeah, you remember, Neil. Come back with the evidence that Polaris is 90 degrees at the exact North Pole. Like, he'd have to find the North Pole for a start, wherever that is.
Yeah, shrouded in mystery. But the point is that even with the assumption, you have to demand that your opponent in that instance takes that as read. So the way that Rumpus got around that was to say, you can easily verify that if you start with Polaris at your zenith, that would be you measuring it essentially at 90 degrees. Well,
yeah,
you back away, and every time you turn the compass that's now at the centre of the sphere, I'm assuming it will move 1 degree. So then he started at the source, doesn't have to justify getting any straight lines because it's at his zenith, and then he just starts twisting the presupposed spherical Earth around the protractor he's got in the middle of it, doesn't he?
Well, you can go and you can do this for yourself. That's what he's telling you, isn't it? Because that's what he told you that day. What you can do this for yourself. You can prove my claim for yourself. I don't have to prove my claim. I just have to convince you that my claim has some relevance. And you can go off and you can prove it for yourself. That way I don't have to prove anything I'm claiming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we said, oh, can you go and easily demonstrate this? Well, then you can go and get this very easily, can't you, Rumpus, as it's your claim? How long has it been? yeah, that little burden of proof reversal fallacy landed in my whole heap of trouble at that occasion. Didn't have to lie his way around it, just didn't offer any actual substantial evidence to back his claim. Just told us that we could get it really easily.
On that point,
I think you said it's common knowledge.
Adam Meekin either. So Rumpus was some time ago, maybe 2-3 weeks ago. Rumpus was due to do a Bedford Levers observation. Does anybody know whether it happened or not?
I kept up to it where it was the first very limited version of it, but then there was a claim that he was going to go back and put these massive 30-foot pieces up at various distances, but that I didn't see any further update on that.
But Bev and the lads went out and did something. Bev and DP and them, they went out and they did it on the canal, I think. And that was a week before Rumpus was going to do it. But I haven't heard anything about Rumpus doing it.
I just want to know, did he do it or not, and what were his results? It's all gone a bit quiet on the grapevine.
Rumpus is a liar.
He already has his results, Anthony. You see, this is the thing about it. This is going nowhere because first of all, for exactly what Neil just said, Rumpus is a proven liar. So anything he says or comes up with has to be seen as trickery, right? You can't trust it.
I know the trick.
One. Number two. Sorry?
Anthony's asking about the Bedford level. Well, I was privy to the conversation between George Netanyahu, Rumpus, and Bev in terms of the explanation. And what they did was they structured the positioning of what they were going to go and claim or measure or whatever they were going to do between two different parties. So what you had was a tag team. George is explaining anything that's optically related. Anything that's to do with atmospheric, in quotes, conditions, anything to do with, quote, refraction, anything to do with what you'll be seeing through the telescope. That's all dealt with by George. Rumpus deals with the Muppet vision side profile description of how the sphere, when begged, will represent what George is going to be talking about optically. So you've got a separation between Muppet vision, no optics, described by Rumpus, to make you beg the question of what will be accepted as what we will, quote unquote, see. Over to you, George. That was how it was positioned. So Muppet vision, representations that exclude perspective and assert, begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking, Earth curve calculations will be the result of a drop at a given geometric rate that's been debunked by the black swan. And if anything to do with optics comes up, George can deal with that. That's how it was positioned to Bev.
Exactly. Rumpus is dealing with the side-on geometric stuff right? Side-on geometric begging the question, and George is dealing with the front-on 7/6R begging the question. That's what's going on.
Correct.
George is dealing with the refractive 7/6R nonsense that's based on a geometric horizon that doesn't exist. And Ren Rumpus is going to show everyone side on this geometric horizon that doesn't exist. That's exactly it.
Correct. So no actual observation was required. What was required of the people who were actually doing the graph, that's Bev, was that he accepted, because it was demanded of him by Rumpus, the side profile presentation in terms of how you assume the optics George is describing will represent in his Earth curve geometry.
Well, the point I was going to make a few minutes ago was Rumpus has already stated several times what the outcome is going to be. He said there's going to be 18 feet of drop. This is what he said. He's going to find 18, he's going to show there's 18 feet of drop. That means he already has his final outcome before he ever does anything. So anyone who has the final outcome before they ever do anything means that no matter what he does, he's going to claim there's 18 feet of physical Earth curve drop. You know, that this is where he's at. So he wants to do this and just make that claim.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what happens on the day, that's the claim he's going to make. He's not going to take optics into account, like an optical drop of any kind. He's not going to take angular size change. Anything like that is not going to be taken into account. He already has the outcome to his demonstration.
Yeah, and his outcome is based on the mathematics that is derived from an R value that required a physical geometric sphere edge. That's Earth curve, horizon, debunked by the black swan. So when he knows already what he's going to get, it's because he's already begged the question of R in his Muppet Vision mathematics that's going to assume geometry is the cause of any drop that he's asserting, that is ignoring angular size representations getting smaller into the distance. All of that's going to be dealt with a different party. That would be George.
And he's doing this in somewhat secretive some kind of a secret. I can't remember. No, don't have the word for it now. Some kind of a secretive way where he's kind of keeping as many flat Earth people out of this as possible. I think he kind of allowed for Brian Leakey to be involved, but Brian Leakey would have to come from Florida to Bedford. Do you know what I mean? To be involved. Do you know what I mean? It's like he's not allowing anyone to get involved. He wants to do this top secret with only Globe Earthers there, and then make a Globe claim. That's what he wants to do.
Sure, but there's no need. He's already made the globe claim, and his globe claim utilised geometry that's debunked by the black swan and ignores angular-sized representations because it's in Muppet Vision. So he didn't need to do anything. If he has, no need. I've saved you the trouble, Rumpus. You're going to need R. That's it. End.
Exactly.
Also, when he's describing how the Earth dropped away 18 feet, his representation that he gave showed the side of your own head. So to appreciate how he's describing an 18-foot drop, you've got to appreciate that to see the world in that way, you must not only be seeing something that's going to be described with this mathematics, but that thing that you are seeing through your eyes also will include the side of your own head to remove all aspects of perspective, so that you can comprehend how there's an 18-foot drop. Yeah, we do have perspective. We don't see the side of our own head. Muppet Vision is just their way of excluding the actual effects of the world we encounter.
Right, we don't see that way. I don't.
There you go, Anthony. That was fun.
Nathan, since we are categorizing the responses from the ballers, let me review a few. I may have missed some, so I'd like the panel to help me out.
Okay.
When we came out with the sextant argument, it was done on purpose to get them to have a response. And so far, these are the responses that we've gotten from them. Don't say 90 degrees. You don't need a baseline for a sextant to work. You do not need the horizon for the sextant to work. Angle measuring device, yes, but it's not capable of triangulation. Radius is not a straight line. A circle is not a circle. Zenith distance to the observer, whether the sun, star, or moon, is curved. Is there something I'm missing?
The circle doesn't need a radius. That's Bob the science
Okay.
guy.
Any others?
Yeah, the radius, a straight line radius on a globe is a curved line. No, hang on. In spherical geometry, a straight line is curved. That's why you have a curved radius.
Anthony, you heard any others?
Bendizontal, that'd be.
Yeah, all I've ever heard really is the Bendizontal claim. Straight lines are curves, curves are straight lines.
You know where that comes from? It comes from the meridians that slice through the center of their model. They consider the outside circle of that meridian that's going around their globe as a straight line, which, wait a minute, you just told me it's a globe and it's a circumference line basically touching the circumference all the way around, cutting right through the center, right? Yeah. How is your globe all of a sudden a straight line?
Wherever it comes from, straight lines are not curved lines. They're mutually exclusive.
Yeah, and when it comes to defining radii, then that's where you get them, because you can't have bendizontal radii. It doesn't work. They are by definition straight. Anthony, is he left? Go ahead, Anthony.
That was me, not Anthony.
He's just run off and left his mic open then.
No.
Oh, okay, my bad. Go on, Anthony.
I was giving way to Brian. Come on, Brian, spit.
Go, Brian, go.
Oh, okay. As I said earlier, they're just going to go further and further into ridiculousness. When you asked earlier, Anthony, you're asking Anthony earlier, what is the outcome of this going to be? Where are they going? I reckon they're just going to go further and further into ridiculousness and just attack us personally, because we are the problem that they have now.
Nah, that's just the summary of now.
Yeah, it's going to be now, but personified.
Well, I see that as a descent into madness. I mean, Anthony took it to the absolute extreme. The other side of the cliff at the end of the road, I was hoping he would tell us they'd end on. You know, I was hoping he'd sort of cut short of the end of the road metaphorically, standing on the edge of the cliff. You know, Anthony Adam falling down that cliff to their death, quite literally. But there we go. You know, that is where I'm essentially saying, you know, that is the downside of letting yourself, and I say that sincerely, letting yourself experience this amount of cognitive pain. You can't violate the law of non-contradiction for 5 straight years. It's just not possible mentally. You're going to end up in a heap of mess. I don't know how to describe it. That's why I asked you guys.
Well, if you 100% believe that a unicorn exists, and no matter what you do, you can't come up with any actual evidence for it. You only have a belief. And you're going to continue believing that horses and unicorns are much the same. Some of them are unicorns, maybe that the horn fell off of their nose, whatever. I mean, you will eventually go mad if you won't accept that there is no unicorns out in the fields. They're all horses.
Right, I agree. I think madness is the end of the path.
Nathan, do you remember when I said to you maybe 2 years ago now, I said to you, this argument's going to be lost in the definition and the meanings of words. How true is that right now? I mean, we're literally trying to describe, define, and apply the meaning of a straight line.
Yeah, that's cool. Because any passerby, when it comes down to that level, is going to do a double take. Even your normie that gets here and goes, these flat earthers are idiots. You can't not hear that stuff. What? Straight lines are bent? Why would somebody assert that? Surely that's the flat earther in this argument saying such nonsense, because they're crazy, right? Oh no, it's a globe believer who can't get around the fact that he hasn't got a straight line on a globe. Oh dear.
We've all seen, Anthony, we've all seen them with their side-on view illustrations of their globe model, and then they have a center point, of course, and then they've got on top a tangent plane. It's right there. They have to draw that tangent plane, and it's a short straight line that's barely touching the surface of their spherical Earth. But that's where you see the 90-degree box. So they have to turn their spherical surface into a straight surface in order for everything to work.
Yeah,
in
other words, they believe and they argue that we're living on a flat ball.
Yeah. Bendizontal, yeah.
Well, the thing that impresses me about the sextant is it goes past what a theodolite, the tangent plane they're drawing with theodolites. The sextant goes beyond the horizon. So it's flat for, beyond the horizon.
Okay, these are the arguments, which is great, and I appreciate it. It's flowing really nicely, but I do want to get any opinions from Discord about that subject in terms of, has anybody got any thoughts or considerations in regards to where it's going to end up for our cognitively tied up, mentally pain-ridden opponents on the flat Earth side? Does anyone from Discord want to offer any opinions on that? Feel free.
I think I mentioned before that eventually they're gonna have to end up saying that it's a philosophical view, and don't be surprised about hearing this in the future. That now they're saying we have scientifically proven that the Earth is a sphere. Later on, because of so many proofs and them waffling on even how to define a straight line, they're going to come to the conclusion that, oh, well, it's just a philosophical view, just like heliocentrism and geocentrism. Both models work fine. And pretend like nothing happened.
They'll appreciate that their worldview is just philosophy, i.e. it's just a model. You think that'll come... I don't know. Well, fair enough. That's interesting. Anybody else?
Sean G claims that he's going to do a water level test a la Bev and set up a 400-meter water level. And then he's going to prove that level is level, which actually means it's curved by observing it with an auto level, doing an optical observation.
Yeah, I was listening to that with Bev the other night. Bev was describing what he would expect to see, and he was trying to get Sean G to describe what he was going to see, and he was trying to contrast between a slope and a curve. And basically, Sean G honestly thinks he's going to see a slope, and I'm like, really? That's interesting. Not a curve, then. Obviously, this is work in progress. They're waiting to come to the conclusion of it, but it was interesting listening to how careful Sean G had to tippy-toe around this topic, while Bev's just trying to establish terms that they can agree on before they start making claims and then doing tests and whatever. He's very peculiar with his phraseology and how he tiptoes around the topic.
Yeah, because presumably Bev has recognised the bear trap that is, you cannot have linear perspective on a curve. A globe Earth doesn't offer that. So if you've got a straight line in terms of how it's receding into the distance in a linear fashion, then as you rightly point out, firstly, if you are describing that and attributing it to a spherical surface, that's a slope, not a curve. But a slope in terms of a linear transition is not possible on a curved surface. It's a squared function, right? 8 inches per mile squared. It's a curve, right? That's what they're claiming.
Yeah.
So you can't have linear perspective.
But oddly, though, he was claiming slope.
He's disowned the term hump. And so he was arguing with the other ballers yesterday because, they all just want to think about it in terms of the hump. But Sean's told them, not to use the term hump because we can use it against them.
Yeah, you know what the
the
hump
idea
is.
that the
Hold on.
water can
Hold on.
rise
They're
up.
they're being told not to use the word hump. Oh, that brings a smile to my face. What's the hump?
That's the curve.
Well, the
That's
water
Earth
has
curve.
to. It has to.
Hold on. Say that again, Anthony. What's the hump?
The curve. That's the curve.
That's correct. That's Earth curve. That's a physical geometric sphere edge. Hump. Getting in the way. Hill. Getting in the way. Earth curve. Obstruction. They're not supposed to talk about that. Yeah, so they're not supposed to claim the horizon's Earth curve, because nobody claims the horizon's Earth curve, end quote, Tim Osman. And they're not supposed to claim the hump, because that's Earth curve and we haven't got it. So they're relinquishing parts of their model left, right and centre then.
Yeah, I think specifically he was talking about the water, right? And the water curving and the water level. That's what he was referring to. The hump.
Yeah. But when they say bentizontal, they're saying that the level line in a level, and by that I mean a piece of hose that's poking its way up with a load of tubes stuck in it, so you can see how much water is protruding out of some clear funnels. That's what I mean by level, right? When he asserts that I'm going to take a level, which will be level, and then beg the question that it's actually bentizontal, and then show you optically how the linear perspective can be described in Muppet Vision as Earth curve, and that's what I'm quote unquote seeing, and then describing in Muppet Vision with Earth curve maths. But the hump that's going to be in between me and the thing that's going to be receded into the distance would be the Earth curve represented in the level. So you're saying, oh no, when they say hump, they're talking about the hump of water in the level. Well, no, that's going to be a level straight line that they assume, because they're idiots, is actually bending away at 8 inches per mile squared, leaving you with a hump Earth curve in the middle, represented in the level. They don't want to talk about that because that they can use against us, because that hump is Earth curve represented in your bendizontal, actually flat level.
And why don't they want to talk about that?
I know what it is. The reason Sean G is because the lad who just said it there a few minutes ago, who brought it up a few minutes ago from Discord, he said it's perfect. Sean G is going to make an optical observation. So what's he going to view? He's going to view optical drop of the water levels. So that is a slope, an optical slope. In reality, it's a straight line, right? It's a level straight line in reality. But he's not going to view a hump. So don't talk about the hump, don't talk about our curve. I'm going to show everyone that there's an optical drop. I'm going to claim that that optical drop is drop, as in a 8 inches per mile squared drop. And that's where my argument and our argument is going to lie. That's exactly what they're going to do. He's going to view optical drop, right, which is just going to be an optical slope, right? And he's going to claim drop at 8 inches per mile squared. And no one's going to talk about the hump because that would be an actual curve, not an optical slant.
But the optical slant will be viewed down the line, right, of the level. So you'll stand at one end of the level and look down it to achieve this effect. Yeah, hashtag shit shrinks linear perspective in an optical fashion, then hijacked and called drop. Well, their representation to claim that mathematically takes place in an orthographic world. So the orthographic representation of what they're calling drop would be to say that instead of the perspective that they give you, that would be looking down the level when they claim it's, well, a slope, curving away, that's their actual claim. But when they say that, they're looking down the level, not looking at the level from side on in the way the maths will represent the drop.
Oh, this is all because of what I was getting to is this is all because of the black swan. Their arguments have changed so much that they don't want to talk about Earth curve.
I don't think they understand it themselves anymore. I think you guys understand it better than them, and they dare not challenge you on it because you're more well versed than they are. So they just revert to It's the most atmospheric conditions. Why would you want to examine the world in these conditions? Well, to demonstrate the atmosphere can affect what you're visually seeing. So to determine whether we are seeing things being obstructed or whether we are seeing actual Earth curve, and that's what we need to differentiate. And now we can really see that atmospheric conditions have a dramatic effect on what we're seeing.
Easy, Tiger.
You can't make the claim without doubt
Easy, Tiger.
things that have been obscured is curve.
Easy, Tiger. What now? Atmospheric conditions.
Yeah, apparently, that round
what does that mean?
this round there that sticks to the Earth as it rotates and also goes in all directions at the same time. You know, not contradiction at all with the molecule in motion either.
You'll need R for that. You'll need R.
Tommy, do you realise? Tommy, do you realise that they
still to this day? I still haven't learned what R is.
Tommy,
there is no R. It's like the little kid in the Matrix. There is no spoon.
Tommy, do you realise that when they claim refraction, their model is 7/6R? But when they talk about refraction, they talk about it in the real world, the things that actually influence things like temperature, pressure, humidity, etc. And they conflate that with their model. They don't distinguish and contrast it. That's what we do. We point that out and say, hang on a sec, that's not your model. Your model is 7/6R, and that accounts for your refraction. And obviously it's not enough, so they've got to flatten it out more. So they start talking about pressure and temperature. And in doing so, they debunk their own model because they need more. But they don't see it that way. They see it as a conflation between the two terms because that's an equivalence position, and that, in their opinion, is acceptable. We try pointing that out, and we just get called all sorts of names.
That's exactly anyone that disagrees with anything that the mainstream says. It's responding with criticism rather than, okay, you may have a point, and that's where I come in. I feel like you have a point. The atmospheric conditions definitely affect what you're seeing anyway. So it's up for contention. It's up for debate, as far as I'm concerned. And for them to talk down to every flat earther is just, it's weak really. Because
debate is over.
If these people they think you're pretending, and obviously no one can pretend for 1,500 days.
Can I?
It's over.
Yeah, it's over. Go ahead, Zenth.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but orthographic view versus the actual. So if I'm a baller, okay, and I say I'm living on a sphere with a radius of 3959, wherever I am, I'm at the top of the hump, and everything should be falling away from me. So if you're a mile down the road, you're at top of your hump, and everything should be falling away from you. So if you take a one-person view, and I'm at the top of the hump, and everything's falling away, why do I expect to see a hump? I am the hump.
Well, and that's what he's trying to go with, but then that introduces
when you look through the, sorry,
hold on.
The sea, right?
Hold on. Go ahead, bendy space-time.
That introduces the paradox of what happens when you go to the other side of the water level, and you view the water level from the other side back towards the way you originally. So you're saying it drops in both directions.
Yeah, but that's
it does drop in both directions.
Hold on. What you're describing, bendy space-time, is the issue. So they're looking down the level, aren't they?
Yes.
Right. Their maths isn't looking down the level. Their maths sees the side of your own head standing, looking down the level.
Correct.
But see, it all comes back to optical drop, because if I'm looking at one end from, if we have a 200 meter water level, and I'm at one end, and the lad just speaking there in the Discord is at the other end, we will both observe a drop, but it's an optical drop. It's not a geometric drop.
That we're
That's the
talking
difference.
about, sorry.
Yeah, well, I just, the point I'm making is it's the same thing as I said with the Polaris argument earlier. Is it a geometric drop or an optical angle change? So are we looking at an optical drop or a geometric drop? They have to claim a geometric drop. But by doing that, they also have to ignore all optical drop, which is what they will
mention about that the obstruction earlier, when people are saying you're looking over when that thing that's obstructing both of you, because what's in the way, if you're both at the top. Well, if you're looking what's obstructed in the horizon, then you're looking basically through the ocean, aren't you? Because that's the obstruction covering, let's say, the mountain or something, or whatever you're trying to show the curvature, the effects of curvature. Because I can't show you curvature; they can only show you the effects of it, right? But let's say that these effects that they're talking about, maybe these effects are, perspective, and basically, if you learn a different way of looking and how you understanding how light works and how over distance, things reduce in angular size, there's all the stuff that actually matters. These effects actually could be just effects of something else, and that's why I think the experience, but a lot of it's been reverse engineered. We've just swapped it for that perspective for the curvature.
Yeah, it has. But this speaks to Sleeping Warrior's point to you, which is to say that when you say things like atmosphere and then talk about refraction, they're taking the paradigm of 7/6 of a radius in standard form, otherwise known as atmospheric or atmosphere refraction. Yeah. So when they talk about what's going on in the atmosphere, they're automatically assuming light bending around a sphere at a given rate always. Well, that type of refraction, or terrestrial refraction, sometimes they'll call it standard refraction, sometimes they'll call it atmospheric refraction, but they're all the same thing. They're all assuming a sphere. They've all got an R value at their heart, and none of them are describing the actual effects that you will see when you go out and observe the world. Now, does refraction exist? Yes, it does. Is refraction 7/6 R? No, it isn't. No. That's Anthony's point. But they will use it as a false equivalency. This is why you have to separate out Rumpus and George. So George can talk about actual optical effects that we will see in a very coherent way. But then when you transition across to a world that you don't see with the side of your own head in shot and all aspects of perspective removed, then the world of 7/6R takes over, light bending around sphere-shaped air at a standard rate. Well, the two things are very different, and they have to bait and switch their audiences, and now they're doing it with tag teams, so that you can think they're talking about atmospheric refraction, and if you say, well, that's not atmospheric refraction because it's just nonsense, you've made it all up, basic understanding, I'm not saying that's you, Tommy, but then they say, no, well, this is how refraction really works, and they show you a refractive effect, and they say, are you denying that that's how refraction works? And you go, yeah. They go, right. And in our sphere, this is the bit they don't say, we're going to now substitute what we've just shown you in reality for our 7/6R Muppet Vision side-on view light bending at standard rate refraction. All good. In other words, they bait and switch you with two different suitcases. One suitcase has got real-world effects, refraction, in it. The other has got terrestrial refraction, light bending around Muppet Vision spheres.
Mm. It's exactly. So mad, yeah, they're magicians. Yeah, magicians they are. They just literally slip it in there.
That's not magic. Just be careful. I'm sorry. That's not magic. That's being a con man. Con man.
Yeah.
That's called the bait and switch.
Let's say you con it. That's what the magicians are. They con people. They make them fit. They sleight the hand. They get distracted with one thing and they do another, and they pull the card out. And that's they are just con men, really. The magicians.
The difference between a con man and a magician is one is doing it for the sake of entertainment, and like with actors when we were talking earlier about Shatner, there's the suspension of disbelief. While you appreciate that the wizard hasn't really made the flowers appear out of nowhere, to a certain extent, because it's on a stage, it's an act, it's a performance, it's understood. There's a unwritten understanding between audience and performer that the audience will suspend disbelief. So if you're talking about a magician and a magic trick, then that is what will be employed. Now, all of those tricks and techniques are utilised by con men. The difference is that one is allowing you to suspend disbelief, the other is forcing you to suspend disbelief. In other words, creating the misapprehension that what you're getting is real. So the con, as opposed to magic trick, is they show you a suitcase with real-world refraction and talk about it educatedly. But then they cause a commotion, and when you're not looking, they close that suitcase, slip it behind their back, and grab the other suitcase and open it back up. And just as you turn back around, they close the suitcase. So you think, when they lock it and close it and change the combination, you think you're talking about what you just looked at in the suitcase. Real-world effects of light deviating from straight, which does happen. But what's actually been locked up in the suitcase and you've been handed is 7/6 of a radius value in standard form, and they'll change the rate based on R to whatever suits their needs. But you don't know that. You think you've got a suitcase full of real-world refraction. But that's not a suspension of disbelief. It's not you thinking, while you're watching Superman, yeah, I'm going to decide that I believe Superman can actually fly. You all know he can't, but for the film, you'll just accept that he can. But when you walk out the theatre, you don't then think that you're going to be approached by a flying man called Superman. But when you walk out of the theatre from a con man, you're holding a suitcase with terrestrial refraction in it, thinking that you'd paid for, real refraction. Yeah? Nobody's leaving the theatre thinking that the magic was in any way real when the magician performed his trick. But you certainly leave the business suite with your suitcase full of terrestrial refraction thinking that you got something real from the con man who swindled you with a trick that seems similar to a magic trick. Just a con.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. There's a massive difference between the two.
The worst
magician,
part about that.
at the end of the trick, the magician doesn't keep your watch.
Yeah.
The worst part about it is they'll claim refraction to explain an observation that makes no sense on a globe Earth. And if you argue with them, they will show you, as Nathan says, a real refractive effect. And they'll say, are you denying that that's real? And your only choice then is either to deny reality or to accept that what they're showing you is real. So when you accept what they're showing you is real, and then that validates their claim. Because that's the point that they switch from real refraction, they take that out and put in their 7/6R. But they are not showing you 7/6R. They're showing you something that's really happening.
That's the thing. Nathan keeps asking for R. He keeps saying, where do you got to get R in the first place? And they're just like, it's already in the atmospheric mathematics, like you said. And R's already put in a lot of things. I think it's also done with surveying. Because a lot of surveyors, I mean, I heard Whitsitt.
Yeah, but by that point, while you're describing this, you're deep into the con already. That's the point. Yeah? You're already well and truly hooked by the swindler. And he's having you justify your suspension of disbelief. The equivalent, when we all understand suspension of disbelief, is when you go into a theatre and you watch a crap movie, and it doesn't build up the characters and the plot well enough for you to accept what's just happened. So you ask yourself, well, why would she be in the top flight business meeting? She's supposed to be homeless. How is she even there? And suddenly the film seems less realistic. You can't buy into the story or the characters or what the plot's telling you. So you need a certain amount of filler to go before that positioning, i.e., she happened to ask a man on the street for some money. He was in a smart suit. He took pity on her and gave him his business card and said, if you ever need anything more, come and meet me at my office. So then in the next scene, when she's in the office, you can suspend disbelief quite happily. Well, the swindler looks at these things like performance art, like magic, and says, which bits can I utilise? Well, to get somebody in a movie theatre to accept that Superman can fly, you just have to give them enough padding before it, and they'll suspend disbelief of their own volition. The more they can suspend disbelief, the better they think the movie is. Well, you just don't tell them it's a narrative and get them to suspend disbelief with enough padding to make you think that what's happening is real, for you to accept the trick. And in this case, for them to describe stuff that's really occurring, something that's real, you then bite. Okay, this person's talking about the real. So when they swap it out for the mathematical, the globe-based, the geometric horizon only exists in the maths, therefore R only exists in the maths, therefore 7/6 only exists in the maths, terrestrial refraction isn't real. But that's the suitcase they hand you. But you've had enough to suspend disbelief when they're looking at the side-on profile and you're looking at your own head for you not to just go, I reject this out of hand. Now, likewise with the crap movie theatre and the crap picture, if you just arrive on the spot at them showing you the side of your own head and telling you the light bends around this sphere that you've never heard of, you go, no, what the hell is this nonsense? Why am I looking at the side of my own head? Why are you telling me how I see the world when I can see the side of mirror? All those sorts of things would immediately be prevalent. But they've given you enough to let you suspend disbelief. And then they let you go away with your suitcase, and you're normally, hopefully for them, quite happy, not realising you've been swindled. The amount of people who get conned and don't even know they've been conned. That's my rant. I'm over. I'm done.
That's
Are-
lovely to hear.
Are you familiar with B-Ball's observation, his pictures that he takes over the water of the buildings in the distance to prove optical drop, or I mean to prove curvature drop?
I'm familiar with him, and I know exactly what it is.
Okay, to make this, okay, two things just before we go on, then have at it. He'll need half of that, and he'll need a geometric horizon to obscure things for that. The horizon's not Earth curve. We've debunked that. Have at it.
Yeah, I know exactly what that is. I debunked. He has a series of them videos. He had these series of 8 or 10 videos that came out some while back, and I just picked any of them at random because I knew what it was. I think it was the 4th one, and I picked his 4th observation. What it is he's living in Hawaii. So Hawaii has a very steep drop off close to their shoreline. So what happens is, it happens around Australia and other parts south of the equator. What happens is, when the tide is coming in, and it can happen, I think, when the tide is going out, but it happens definitely when the tide is coming in, is that this wall of water hits a big wall of land. So it humps up. So that's why he's able to show things being so blocked in the distance, because I took one of his videos and I completely debunked it. Now, he couldn't argue with what I did. I showed all the tide data, everything about, it's called, what I'm talking about, you can check it out, it's called tsunami wave shoaling, right? That's all he's videoing, is tsunami wave shoaling. It shows a big hub of water, right, getting in the way of something. But that's only due to this topography of the land underneath. And he knows this. And I corrected him on this, and he couldn't argue with me. And I look back at his videos. I don't know if it's still there, but I look back on his videos about 6 months, or 4 to 6 months after I debunked his video, and he kept his videos still up. So that's all that is. Tsunami
I
wave
admire
shoaling.
that you can explain it. And there is absolutely no requirement for you to do so, given that he was making the positive assertion. And as I say, I do applaud you, and you can give a proper explanation for why there is a claim to be physical geometric sphere edge horizon blocking the view of things in the distance, actually described by a tsunami, incoming tidal force meeting land, lower, underwater rather, therefore humping up exactly as Ranty described about 3.5 years ago. Well, the explanation's wonderful, but the horizon's not Earth curve. And the assertion still needs a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon to derive an R value to make the assertion in the first place, for his now debunked horizon Earth curve bulge getting in the way of the stuff in the distance. Correct, Brian?
Yeah.
So let me get this straight here. When it's low tide versus high tide.
Well, it might happen a bit on. I think Randy could show it happened at low tide as well. It can happen when the tide is going out, I think. But I know it definitely happens when the tide is coming in.
No, you're missing my point. So Nathan goes through a beautiful summary of how they do the trick. And the next question is, this guy's doing this thing. And then obviously, if you're going to beg the question and get in there in the fight like you did and destroy them because you described tsunami shoaling, the whole point is that their Earth curve is geometric, as Nathan said, and we all know, and I know you know this, Brian, and R cannot change if it's geometric. So low tide changes it, high tide changes it. It's all optical. It has nothing to do with the curvature of the Earth.
Exactly.
Well, this is how dishonest he is, though, right? Because he's taken his auto level and he's pointed it across the water, and he's said, "Look, we're missing the bottom 14 floors of this building. Here's your curvature." And so when people said, "Well, what about refraction? Did you take refraction into account?" And Sean G went into a long discourse about how, well, we could make multiple observations at different times during the day, and over different days and come to some kind of conclusion about what actually is going on with the refraction and average it out. And when pressed, B-Ball had to admit he only did that observation twice and not even on the same day.
Sure, I appreciate, again, you're taking a part of their veracity in terms of their claim, but their
They need
claim is
all.
that there's a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon blocking things to the tune of 14 stories. That would be an attribution of an actual size, in this case stories, but it doesn't matter if it's feet, inches, meters, centimeters, doesn't matter. They're saying that a value that doesn't change with distance is being obscured by a physical geometric sphere edge horizon. That's their claim. Yeah, we've debunked that all of that nonsense. It no longer needs you to point out anything to do with the actual conditions, the veracity of the claim, how many times they did it, whether they averaged their begging the question 7/6 and adjusted for their assumption in Muppet vision when they're talking about things that are optical. Because their mathematics doesn't account for things being optically changing in any way. It's just a derivation of their R value, which has been debunked by the Black Swan, as has the claim that there's a physical sphere edge getting in the way to give him his stories value, when how many stories are obscured? Well, yeah, that value doesn't take into account the apparent size change with distance. 14 stories is 14 stories regardless of how far you're looking at it from. But the angular size, well, that changes as you get further and further away. Not accounted for in Muppet Vision mathematics, and your Muppet Vision mathematics have been thoroughly debunked by the Black Swan. So all of this is completely pointless. It's a 2015 claim. But I'm nagging you a little bit, the guy from Discord, because you're kind of giving a 2015, 2016 response. No offense.
Yeah, I should just
Correct.
lead
You're
with
going to need R
you're
for
gonna need
that.
R for that.
Yeah,
Well,
you're way ahead of us. He's way ahead of us, Neil. He just said it as well.
Well, I'd like to give everyone a little bit of history on Sean G. Sean G, some years ago, claimed to be a flat earther, and then he claimed to switch back to the globe, right? Sean G claimed to switch back to the globe from flat Earth, right? He claimed first to be a flat earther. Now, I had no interactions with him. He just, out of nowhere, turned up claiming that he used to be a flat earther. That was it. And he did an interview on Fight the Flat Earth's channel. This is probably about 2016 or something, 17, and said that the reason that he switched back to the globe is he didn't realise how big the Earth was. That's 3 minutes 12 seconds into the interview. That was what he said.
Idiot.
Right? No, what a load of rubbish! What a load.
Sean G, hello. Can anyone hear me, or is it my mic not working?
Yeah, I can.
Hello?
I'm talking. One second, Tommy.
We can, Tommy, but the problem is, while someone else is talking, the gate closes. And then when the gate opens, because he's paused for a second, you come blasting through really loud because you've been talking the entire time he's talking, right?
Shout out to Tommy Inch.
I heard him have a break and he was saying about Sean G not being a flat earther. And I said, I can confirm that he was, because when I met Sean G, I used to be a glober and I used to argue with Sean G. And I used to embarrass him for being a flat earther. And it turns out that obviously I've gone more to the flat earth side and he went back to the globe. Now, me and Sean G have had loads of interactions where we've debated about gravity and such things. And he was very poor at describing gravity. He just used to read the definitions, but he never used to explain what his understanding of them definitions were. So he'd read the actual definition, but he wouldn't explain what they meant to him. So his understanding of gravity was very poor, and I used to ridicule him even now as a glober. So I just elaborating on his story really, because I was listening to it. I think just to confirm that this is true. He was a flat earther, and it is. I can confirm that because I've experienced that with him.
Thank you.
Well, I remember him claiming to be a flat earther, and being on Fight the Flat Earth's channel claiming to have been one, and then he said, but see, I don't ever believe for a moment he ever was a flat earther. I believe he was this is my point.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. He definitely. I can tell you my personal experience. I used to argue as a glober, because I used to be a glober. And when I met Sean G, he had this frontline flat Earth channel, and I went on there and I literally had to go at him. I used to embarrass him and say that he was a buffoon for thinking the Earth's flat. Right, and then it turns out I've gone and debated it for a few years, and my position's changed, and he's actually gone back to the globe. And I've argued back at him. So I'm just saying to you that he definitely was confirming that. That's all. But does that change anything for you?
No. Yeah, he was never a flat earther. What he was
He
a
was.
globe
He was
outer.
though. This is what I'm saying. I know that he was. Personally, my personal experience
I
is
dealt
that
with this before, but not just him. He pretended to be a flat earther. Does that mean 2 or 3 of them, maybe 4 of them, that done that?
He used to love
The exact
D-Marble.
thing.
He used to love D-Marble and all them guys. He was a proper flat earther.
Well,
he had a frontline flat Earth website. He had all flat Earth proofs on there. Like he was a militant flat earther. And when I met him, I used to argue against him as a glober because I used to be a glober. People do change.
Brian, just accept it.
Okay, then.
It's true.
Okay.
Jesus Christ, stop repeating it.
How come then, right, he said the reason he went back to being a globe outer is because he hadn't realised how big the Earth was, when a flat Earth is a much bigger expanse than a globe Earth.
You can't ask
That
him
was
that. He's not
exactly
gonna
what
know
he
that.
said on Quite the Flat Earth channel. And
It's
when
a
I questioned
rhetorical
him
question.
about it,
It's rhetorical because who's going to know that? We can't divine his thoughts, right?
yeah, well, the point I'm making is I'm trying to get to, right? Let me just get through it. It doesn't matter whether he really was a flat earther or not. I don't believe he was really, I believe he had maybe a channel and whatever else, and he might have argued here and there, but I don't really believe he was ever a proper flat earther. I believe he was a farce. That's my belief. I believe he was just a con man, pretending he was. Right? Because over the years, there's been three or four people like him doing that same thing. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. The point I'm trying to get to is I remember him claiming to be an ex-Marine or ex-US Army, something like that, right? And he was a globe outer and for a year or so, year and a half. And then he decided he was moving out of this whole arena, right? He was an ex-military person, and he was moving out of this whole arena because he wants to spend time with his children and his partner and not be arguing with flat earthers. And everyone was like, okay, good man, Sean. All the globers were like, good man, Sean. Off you go. Best of luck. He disappears for a year. Then suddenly he comes back and he's some kind of a surveyor.
You don't want to hear the other side then. You're wrong then. I'm just going to say it this way. You're wrong. I've experienced him. I know him. And when I met him, he was a genuine flat earther. And, you know, he believed he had his own values about veganism.
Yeah, but you're missing my point.
Anything about it. So the point is, I just disagree with your assessment on him. And I would know him, yet you're talking about him like you know him better than me, and you don't even never had no interaction with him. So I find that quite ignorant. I'm somebody that's trying to give you a different insight to it, and you're just completely shutting me out. Yeah, I've got more reason to believe what I believe than you have, because you're just going on a whim. You don't even know him or spoke to him, and yet you've got your opinion more valid about this guy that you've never met or spoke to. That's absurd.
Can I ask you a question?
Hang on 1 second. You have to not listen to what I said at all. Sean G was supposed to be an ex-military guy who was supposed to have been a flat earther, and then he turned back to the globe. Then, hang on, leave me finish. You're missing the point. The whole point of it, you're arguing about this part at the start that doesn't matter. Because it doesn't matter whether he was a flat earther or thought he was or pretended he was. That part doesn't matter. The point is that he went from that position of claiming to be a flat earther to being a globe earther, and the reason he switched back was because he didn't realize. He says he didn't realize how big the Earth was. This is what he said. This is complete nonsense. So that immediately is a red flag for me.
It does matter. Listen, it does matter because you said.
But you're not listening.
Hello,
to
can I
say that?
talk or not? So initially you said you do not think for 1 second he was actually a flat earther, and that's where I stepped in to correct you on that point. And then you realised quickly that you didn't right. So you changed and said, oh, it doesn't matter. But that was the only point that I joined in for. So it absolutely does matter. So if you're trying to now make it doesn't matter irrelevant because his excuses going back to the globe was poor in your opinion. Well, that's just in your opinion. When I met him and debated against him, he definitely was a flat earther, a genuine one, and he sufficed.
Okay. What was the rest of what I said then? What was the rest of what I said?
Okay. Can I say something?
It doesn't.
I'm not sitting here dissecting every single part of you. Listen, I'm pointing out a simple point, and you didn't like it, and you try to backtrack on it.
It's not about whether I liked it or not. The point is,
like Brian mentioned,
everything was the same. Hang on. My whole point was everything I was trying to say, and you jumped in at the start of it, and you said no, he was a flat earther. You're wrong. My point is that
he was making a claim that he was a flat earther. That's what you said.
Unless you can define his
Tommy, that's totally irrelevant.
We'll accept. Okay,
that's totally irrelevant.
Okay. Hold on. Everyone calm down a second. Everyone calm down just for a second. If I'm hearing that it's moot, it's not that relevant a point, why can't you just concede it to him? Because then he can move on. He's saying moot or otherwise, I disagree with that point. You're saying it's not that relevant anymore. Well, fine, can't you just concede it to him?
He's talking to me or Tommy?
Other than an issue where you could speculate that he was pretending to be a genuine flat earther, he's saying, here's evidence to show that he was, as far as Tommy is concerned, presenting himself with evidence as being a legit flat earther. Now, I get that you could further to that make an argument that, well, you'd have to set yourself up at least somehow realistically, and, you know, you'd expect him to do that so someone like Tommy would come along and legitimise him. You could extend your argument beyond that, but all Tommy's saying is, you presented it, there's no way on Earth he could have been a real flat earther. He just turned up and then said he'd converted from flat to globe, with a crap excuse for doing so. Tommy's saying, not true, there is more of a backstory to him. That's all he wants you to concede. Because otherwise it seems like Tommy's put that out like it's not true.
Yeah, but I said it didn't matter to me whether he was or wasn't.
No,
that
I
didn't
know.
matter to the final point.
Okay, so if it doesn't matter, can't you just legitimise what Tommy said and say, okay, I get it. So
Sure,
there is some
okay.
backstory to him.
Okay, there's a backstory to it. That's fine. But you're after completely missing the whole lot of the point. That was only the very start of the story.
Hold on. Which I'm sure now that you've conceded it to him, he'll happily listen to you reiterate it for the fourth time. I've listened every time. I know what your point is. Maybe other people have.
My point is
so big.
Hang on, Neil. My point is, right, he went from flat to globe by claiming that he didn't realise how big the Earth was. Now, to me, that's a complete nonsense, right? But that was his claim. He claimed to be an ex-military, or he claims to be, I don't know if he still claims that, I have no idea, right? And then, after about a year and a half or 2 years of being on the circuit, on holidays and all that, suddenly he said he was bowing out. He said he was, hang on, 1 second. He said he was bowing out of the argument, of the flat globe argument, and that he wanted to spend more time with his children and his parent or whoever, and rather than arguing with flat earthers. And all his globe earth pals are like, okay, Sean, well, best of luck and all this other nonsense. I heard it. I listened to it on holidays. Right? He disappears for a year.
Can I give my version of events?
Hang on, 1 second. He disappears for a year.
He went back to the globe. He went back to the globe.
I'm not talking about that. Yeah, I accept that. You're not listening to anything I said after that.
I did listen.
But you're not listening to anything.
You said he left because he didn't know how big the world was. You said he left flat Earth, went globe because he didn't realise.
That's what he said. Yeah, I have it. Yeah, that's on.
Look. When I remember Sean G going to the globe, he said there wasn't three things that correlate on flat Earth. You can't do like observation of the sky, time, and location. There's three things that need to 3 points of data that all correlate. He said it only works when you do that on the globe. So that's what I remember him saying to me. So you're wrong.
You're arguing over Sean
I'm
G.
talking about what he said on Fight the Flat Out.
So I used to talk to Sean G a lot. I used to talk to Sean G.
Oh, stop them, Nathan.
Hang on, no, I won't
I'm
stop.
enjoying this.
I'm not finished making my point. And I'm going to make
I got
it.
a point to make.
No, I'm going to make my point.
You
Because I'm
made it,
making
Brian.
my point now.
Come on, be reasonable. You have made it 4 or 5 times, Brian.
I haven't made it. Nobody heard it. What's my
They
point
all
then?
did. I heard it.
And I'm just corrected you on it. You
Justice
said
for
the reason,
Brian.
what your point is.
No, Tommy. Everyone calm down. Everyone be quiet just for a moment. No, don't steal his thunder. Just because you conceded your point, he had a different ancillary point, which, to be fair to him, doesn't matter whether he's pretending to be a flat earther, had a backstory or didn't. You've confirmed he does. Great. But Brian's point still stands, and you're not going to say, yeah, well, I disagreed with your point, because that wasn't.
No, but his point was that he
No.
the fact that he went back to the globe because he didn't know the size of it.
No, that wasn't my point, Tommy. That wasn't my point. You never listened to my point. That was only the start of it.
Okay, but okay.
Yeah, but that wasn't my point. That's the part you jumped in on, Tom.
Okay.
You're not going to listen to me.
Hello, audio chaos has ensued. Go ahead, Quantum Eraser.
Sean G. This is all over Sean G. This guy doesn't even know whether a rocket is matter, and he doesn't agree with Einstein because he doesn't understand Einstein. That's why he goes with Newton. This guy is dumber than a bag of fucking hammers, and you're sitting here arguing for how long about him?
I'm not arguing about him. I'm trying to make a point. I'm trying to make a point. I was giving a timeline.
Here we go again.
Unbelievable. I've got experience.
Where's
Kit?
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, Tommy, I agreed. I conceded that he had a backstory that I wasn't aware of. Grand,
And
I
he
totally
also
conceded
went back
on
to the
that.
globe for different reasons than you purported. You purported him to go
No,
back to the
he
globe
did.
because he didn't understand the size
Tommy,
of the Earth.
it's on an interview.
Why is
Well,
everyone
how
talking
come
all
I
over
listened
me
to an
when I
interview
speak?
he
It
did on
makes me
Fight
so
the Flat
frustrated.
Earth?
Hold on. I do want to hear
How
what
come I
Tommy's.
listened to an interview
Brian.
he did on Fight the Flat Earth?
Okay.
And he didn't. He said
Brian,
that at 3 minutes 12 seconds.
Brian, take a breath, please. Because at the moment it's now the other way around. We're not
Well,
getting
nobody
to
has gotten to hear my point.
Thank you.
Because nobody got to hear what I was trying to say.
I know, but I still want to rein you
It has
in.
nothing
Just
to do with
okay.
My point is not him
Tommy,
going from flat to globe. That wasn't me.
Thank you. Please tell me 6 more times it's not your point. Just tell me 17 more times it's not your point, please. Thank you. I do want to hear what Tommy's got to say in response, so it's somehow coherent. Because I know you're hearing him while you're talking, but for us, it's just you and him talking through each other. So, regardless of how strongly you disagree, I do want to hear what Tommy's got to say in response. But it's just getting rumpus every time. Go ahead, Tommy. But do have an end to it, Tommy.
All right, quickly, short and quick. When I asked her when he was explaining his point, he said something about he didn't like the way Sean went back to the globe because he didn't realize how big the world was, and that was one of his reasons. He didn't like it, yeah, and one of his points. So he didn't like that. So I said, my experience from Sean is he never went back to the globe because he didn't realize the size of the Earth. It's because he said there was 3 different things that didn't correlate. So my experience with Sean is actually credible because I've actually met him and spoke to him, whereas he hasn't. He's just saying he's going on a whim and he's going on vague conceptions of why he's left. So I don't think they're consistent with my experience of knowing Sean. So I ain't here to defend Sean because he's some glorious person. I think he's an absolute retard myself. I think he's a retard as a globe, and he was a retard as a flat earther, and I destroyed him on both sides of the argument. But yeah, that's it. I'll
That's
quickly
exactly
end.
what I was trying to say. Like, he's irrelevant. Honestly, like, he's a very irrelevant individual. He's not on the calendar.
Okay.
Nathan,
Thank you. Please don't let audio chaos descend again. Can Brian now actually respond? He got to hear what Tommy had to say, so did we. Thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. I'd say it again. He done an interview with Fight the Flat Earth on Fight the Flat Earth's channel, and Sean G himself, said in that interview at about 3 minutes 12 or 3 minutes 16 seconds that the reason he switched was because he didn't realize how big the Earth was. The reason he switched back from flat to globe, that's what he said.
Cool. I used to speak to him on Jen Panda's server like, every day because I remember I spent like 5 years on Jen Panda's server talking to flat earthers all the time. And Sean G was one of my favourite people. I love shouting at him and making him feel like an imbecile. I used to shout at Chemo. Like now I love Chemo. And Debbie and like all that. I used to shout at them all. I used to sit there for like 5 years shouting at them. Thinking, how can you think the Earth's flat? Are you fucking retarded? You know?
Can you pick a distance off your mic? Because when you decide that you're going to talk through people, you get incredibly loud. So when the gate reopens, you're blasting out everyone's eardrums. And then when you come back to you, you've backed right off your mic. You're really quiet. It's like constantly fighting with the fader with you.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I've basically got
Now you're super quiet again.
I just use my mixing desk basically.
Jesus wept. Let me get it straight. You're fucking with your mixing desk. Just leave it the fuck alone. You're going to get shouted at, Tommy. Tommy, right, this is a horrendous nightmare for me, right? Because you're pissing around with your faders. Just pick a level and leave it there, please.
That's my level now. There's my level.
No, what you're doing is deciding that you'll boost yourself up 10 dB when you're not being heard, right? I can't spend the show fighting you and your faders, mate. It's not reasonable. Not funny. I've got better things to do.
Got you. Don't mess with Nathan's sound.
Yeah, that's what he's doing. I'm sitting there having to fight the fader with him.
I don't think I've ever heard an argument about a retard last so long. I don't understand why.
Nobody actually.
Brian's quite hard-headed. He's quite hard. I mean, he's a strong guy. He's a good character. But like, you know, like I feel sometimes like he says, "I just want to say my point," and he says it over and over and over, and like it just there's no back and forth sometimes.
I want to hear what QE had to say.
He's an imbecile.
I just got to say,
he is dumber than Brenda.
I don't know about that. Come on.
Oh yeah, he is. I know. I do know. Go on my channel and you'll see outtakes of this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a moron. Certifiable. He didn't know that a rocket was made out of matter. I'm fucking serious. God.
Certifiable, Quint. You're certifiable.
What did he think it was made of?
I know he was asked, "Is a rocket made out of matter?" He said, "Can somebody else please answer that question?" That's what you're talking about. I wanted to get back to where's Kit?
Crushed. You can check out the Knight Rider History channel.
Somebody asked, right, real nonchalant. They said, "Well, where's Kit?" Nathan said, "Back at the beach house." I was rolling.
Yeah, they didn't actually point that out in the TV series, but Kit was actually a bit of a peeping Tom.
A Tom Kit.
You got it.
All right. So where are we at? Can we move off Sean G?
Well, you've drawn an
Yes,
absolute
please.
close to it.
You know what? We should get him in here. We should get him in here and talk to him, man. We should actually. He's all right. He's a good little lad. I could have a little chat with him. You guys could see, catch up with him, and I say, talk about how he transitioned and why, and whether he was right or I was right, and just have a good little chat to him and get him in
We're
there.
just gonna pretend this conversation didn't happen, right? And you never really had any flat Earth existence before now.
I tried. He got me into a global server on a.
Hey,
I think
Tom,
it was remember that guy that funny guy, that skinny lad, the old guy. I forgot his name. Jose or something. Jose show. You on Jose show the other day?
Jose's my age.
Yeah, Jose. Yeah,
Just
him. Yeah,
keep
he
bringing up
looks a
the
lot older.
retards.
Looks a lot older, doesn't he? Huh?
Does Jose still have a show?
I don't know, but when I did go on it, that's when I last spoke to Sean G. And Sean G was talking about gravity. He was
God!
He's just reading the definitions.
That must have been a show.
That's a fair point. What is the score in terms of my, technically speaking, competition out there? Because he ran a similar show to me. So is he still about?
I don't know. Last time I checked, I could probably look online and see. I could check for his channel. Let me have a look for you right now. Second.
Jose G. Gonzalez that used to come on here to get clips to go back and put them on his show. That same Jose G.
Probably him. Yeah, that sounds like him.
Me coming here to get clips. He came in here to get a format. Get clips.
And he used to leave. He used to do the show after your show, didn't he? He used to do it after show of yours. That's how he used to get the audience. Just to do a show straight after you. As soon as you'd finish, he'd take all the audience over. He'd say, "I'm going to do a little show on my channel now," and they'd go over. Jose, how do you spell his name? It's like Joe, isn't it? I forgot his channel name, but yeah, if someone could go to his channel name, you could probably check.
HOSE.
I was thinking the same thing. HOSE.
Doesn't know the difference of supernatural, natural, and man-made. He doesn't know the difference.
I can't be.
He got bigger problems than that.
16% Spanish, so I can get away with that joke, by the way.
You got away with it with me.
All I know is I'm off the hook now. I only had a fan that was on one speed. Tommy's been messing around with
Daily
his
Boom. I found him. Daily Boom. I think he's seen me.
Yeah, but is it still going, Tommy?
J-O-S-E, I told you. J-O-S-E, J.
No, hose.
Yeah, He's kind of confused. I told you, I was right. You lot are trying to confuse me. I was like, nah,
is it still going? Yeah, Daily Boom. Yeah, whatever. Is it still going?
I don't know. I've just posted it now. There's Sean G now having a go at me. Let's have a look. Goes to his channel now. That's how I found it. I just put obviously Sean G versus Brummy.
Look, I've clearly got to clarify what I'm asking for. I'm trying to assess my competition.
Yes, he's live now.
That's what I'm doing.
He's live right now. He's live right now.
Oh, really? Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Wow, we're so well aware that a guy who's literally broadcasting as we speak, we didn't even know if he existed anymore. Wonderful.
What's with the G, huh? Sean G, Jose G. They miss gravity that much?
I thought it was Josie.
Live. Oh man, my fucking keyboard's doing some fucking spastic shit.
Yeah, there's no way he had a mother giving him a middle name. I don't know any of that crap. I'm pretty certain he doesn't have any backstory beyond his transition.
That's probably how he spelled Jose. Joseg.
Prove to me he existed before this whole topic came up.
Subscribers only, it says.
Not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist here, but G is also a symbol for the Freemasons.
And also, he does no capitals, so he does lower S for Sean and then lower G for whatever his surname is. But that's little G, right?
Yep, he's a Mason. You hit it, Anthony.
Dun, dun, dun.
Wow, I didn't even get an acknowledgement for what I said.
Has he done any brickwork to be a Mason?
Speaking of retards, whatever happened to that Zinda character?
Zinda. And do you remember Apollo as well? He was of the same time period.
Oh, Apollo was young and naive. So he
So
might
was
have
Zinda.
actually wised up to the reality he's faced with.
You know,
I'm still waiting for
Zinder
that
actually
kid to...
messaged me and he said he was quitting Discord, for his mental health.
Can you repeat
Wow, I
that?
think you're right,
That was the
Nathan.
subject of today's show. Can you just repeat that?
Yeah. Zinder told me that, he was quitting the flat earth debate, for his mental health.
Holy shit. You're right again, Nathan.
What do you mean, right again? we literally witness their cognitive pain daily, and you're like, oh, you're right again, they're in a lot of pain. Yeah.
But I didn't think it was going to go to that extent.
It's already there. We've been doing this for, 5 years? Well, you can't get any more affirmation than one of them saying, no, so that I don't reach the nut house, I've recognised that I better stop this.
Guys, can I just point out
My
that
God,
Arwen's
that's
over in...
insane.
Can I just point out that Arwen is over in Jose's chat and he's asked Jose a question. He says, Jose, do you believe that William Shatner actually went up in the penis rocket, or that it was all staged and fake and he didn't even take the ride? Now, what Arwen's showing there, he's showing his pain because he can't let it drop.
Oh my gosh, don't even say that. Tell me you're lying.
That's a low
Honestly, that's
moment,
what
man. If you're looking for confirmation bias from Jose J.G. Gonzalez,
That's
man,
what
that's
I'm
a low
saying.
day.
Oh, poor Arwen.
Oh, that's so sad.
It is sad. It's like, Arwen, let it go. It was an actor doing an actor's job. That's what he was doing.
Well, what did you do? What did you believe that, the rocket launch is real or something?
Yep, he
What's the
believes William
problem?
Shatner was in there.
That's not what he asked us. Say your question again, Tommy.
Does he believe that the rocket launch is real?
Oh, you did ask if he believed it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what he believes, but I think his issue is that you can't blaspheme Thingy Shatner.
Yeah, that's it.
That's
Talk
really the
about
issue.
William Shatner.
That's not his position.
Yeah.
His position is, regardless of them having filmed a section that was claimed to be taken as an internal shot, obviously it's not, it's fake, they're on high wire. But if you ignore the fact that there had to be a scene filmed to slip into the footage, Arwen saying that he believes they still stuck him on the penis rocket and sent him up high. Read his question out again. That's precisely what he's asking about.
His question was, let me go back to it. Arwen, bear with me, I'll have to find it. Hang on.
He said, do you believe that they sent William Shatner up on the penis rocket?
Yeah, do you believe William Shatner actually went up in the penis rocket, or that it was all staged and fake and he didn't even take the ride? I don't know what Jose said to respond.
Right. So his question is about, is it all staged? Because we've pointed out something that's glaringly obvious as staged. Now, by our standards, we say, if it wasn't staged, you just have internal footage. The fact that you haven't and you've staged it means it's all fake. Arwin's going, no, do you think that all of it's fake? Or can I retain my belief that Shatner still did as he said, and that's go up high in the sky? I'm saying no, he didn't. Arwin's saying yes, he did. And he's on strike here as a result.
It would be a lot easier to send a remote control rocket up there and just fake it than it would be to send him in there. So obviously he wouldn't be in there. And like I think the way they look when they show you them waving out in the astronauts when they're going for them glass sort of things into the rocket, and they wave back, like when they got the door shut behind them, they're still within the same thing. So when they pull away, they're still inside that thing that pulls away from the rocket as it takes off. And they're just probably still in that little handle there. They've got a couple of fucking they pretend they're inside that little shuttle. Then obviously everyone's misdirected because everyone's watching the rocket go up in the air. And they just walk up there, go away in that little thing.
The thing about a con artist, Tommy, is that they're psychopaths and they enjoy duping their victims, and they enjoy showing their victims how they've duped them just enough so that they can smile and laugh at their victims who don't appreciate that they're being shown how they're being duped. So you can find footage of, for instance, the original Apollo missions where they show the escape hatch that allows them to slide down underground to safety in case it all goes wrong on the pad. So what you're saying is you can literally show them walk up, get into the giant penis, and then instantaneously slide down a slide to safety? Oh, right. But they definitely went on it when it was shot up into the sky, though. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, okay.
Oh, man. It's so patronising, isn't it? Then people go in there thinking they're probably doing the drill.
Well, one thing's for sure. If you're going to be in the flat earth globe debate and you're going to check out, I hear all mail service stops as well.
What I'd really like to know is, was
Hang
Sean
on,
G actually a real flat earther?
You don't want to hear it. That was a pause.
We heard it.
What is it? What was I going to say?
I don't know.
Return to Zinder.
Return to Zinder. Oh, that's dire. But you didn't have it wasn't a good enough lead with the male thing. We weren't talking about that. You were desperately fighting your brain to find something to use Zinder with, a sender, and therefore male. But we weren't talking about that.
Neil brought it up.
Sorry, there's a long pause. I thought you were done.
I said back to Zinder.
You were right, it was. Yeah, we got the pun, but the lead, I wasn't suspending disbelief with the lead up to this. It wasn't part of our story at the time.
Nice.
This is a plot
recovery.
hole.
Nice recovery because you didn't get it. Nice.
Didn't get it? You hadn't done it. I can't get the punchline if you haven't delivered it.
Yeah, you delayed it too long.
If you want to get it, the show's recorded. Go back to the timestamp.
All jokes are. It's all about the timing.
Stamps.
Sorry,
return
Tim.
to Zinder.
It was a long pause.
Gosh.
I thought you were done.
Oh, good one,
Didn't mean to
10
interrupt you.
stamps.
Look, there's somebody trying to speak from Discord, and they're ruining a little pun. You're stopping the pun ball getting rolling, and I'm very grateful to it, whoever it was in Discord. Please feel free.
I was just apologizing to Tim. I didn't mean to interrupt him. There was a long pause. I thought he was done.
Yeah,
You see, Nathan?
You were right. He was. Return to Zinder. We weren't talking about mail. You just had to.
Neil brought him up.
No, he didn't bring up any mail-related stuff. You just talked about the mail being cancelled. It was a completely non sequitur.
Oh my gosh! I said if you're gonna be in the globe flat Earth debate for as long as 5 years and then you check out, I understand the mail stops as well.
Yeah, I heard the lead up. Yeah, and the lead up was non sequitur to everything we were talking about. Therefore, suspension of you alienated your audience with that lead up.
Okay, you don't get the play on words on Zinder and return to sender.
Yeah.
That's it. Then don't. That's it.
Yeah, but for the pun to work, if we happened to have been discussing the postal service at the time, it would have worked.
Look, Neil got it.
It's not about not getting it. Return to Zinder. I get it.
Wow, things are bad. First you're arguing about Jose G. Now we're arguing over 10th pun. Come on, ballers, come up with some sort of proof.
Was Jose a postman at one stage? We can salvage this 10th together. We can salvage this.
No, I don't think it was his bag.
Excellent.
Actually, I did have a question though on how to approach LEOs, low Earth orbits. When some people come along and they say that, when they reach to the point where there's darkness in the atmosphere, that pretty much counts as space. When in reality we know that doesn't. But what's the best way to approach it?
Approach what now?
Space is fake.
Yeah.
There are arguments positioned within existing gas pressure, then you can ask them where they got it from in the first place. They're saying that when you transition from the blue bit, like was described by our friend Shatner during his recent performance, into the black bit, okay, what you're saying is that's space. Well, what is space? It's like, okay, define what they mean by space. Well, space, if you just look up that, you're not going to get anything more than a dimensionality. But if you're talking about outer space, then you're talking about a sky vacuum. Well, if they're saying they transition from the gas pressure into the sky vacuum, if you're going to define your terms, and there you go, that's the advice. If you're having that conversation with somebody, tie down what they're actually claiming. Because the vague, when we go from blue sky to black sky, we're going into space. Okay? Well,
you know what I see when I look at when I look at space? I look at the space as like the deep blue. When you look at the deep, deep blue, like the deep, deep oceans, it's darkness. And like when you look at all these galaxies all floating around and moving around, it's like they're in an ocean. They're not like it's like they've got no gravity and they're floating around and there's nothing in between there. You'd have to swim through this space. This water's above. Yeah, there you go. So it's not just nothing. It's obviously something that contains the air that's here. So what else can contain? Liquids can contain air. Bubbles.
So my advice would be get them to define their terms.
And the reason why I mentioned this was because me and my brother, we were having this discussion, and my brother he's coming along, he's coming around with believing that Earth is a flat stationary plane, and we were talking about how the possible theory that they might, for example, they might deceive other nations when they do these space, these joint, quote unquote, joint operations, is that they trick some of the people that sincerely believe that they're going to space, that they take them so far up to the darkness of the atmosphere to where they deceive people into thinking that they're in space, but in reality they're not. So my brother, he asked, well, is it possible for them to bring people, is it actually possible for them to bring people all the way up to the darkness of the atmosphere, or is it all entirely fake? Like, are they using green screens and harnesses every single time, or does it depend? So that's why I pointed it out to you. He's on the other
time
line.
to go out into space and them ships, definitely fake, isn't it? But I mean, what you can experience is different to what you can look at it in two different ways. You can either look above and you see all the blueness in the sky, and you can say, oh, it's because the light's refracting and due to the way that the sun's coming towards it, and the light wave is being compressed, and you different wave contractions give you different variations of color, and that's why when it's going away from you, you get sunset as well as it's coming towards you. So you can look at it for them explain, or you can look at it as maybe there's other different things that we're not explaining to, of how we have all these electrolytes going over the northern hemisphere and how it all works, and how we have to understand everything in a completely different way, and we'll probably still get these effects that can be explained this way. And so that's all. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm still there. No, I thought somebody from the panel wanted to say something. I thought I saw something. Like a green thing around Nathan's thing, so I thought someone from there wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was just saying, if you look at it as like that darkness out there, It's the same way as looking into a deep ocean. If you look to the deepest parts of the ocean, it'd be darkness, wouldn't it? You know, it's where light can't escape. It's so vast and so depth, and you know that's kind of like what you look at into space, or so-called. So we can't be a vacuum. So it's got to be some sort of material. And if it has some sort of water-like properties, maybe not saying it's exactly like the water that we have, but I don't think that things are flying around and just they look like they're fucking kind of wafting around on some sort of ocean floor.
Thanks. So it sounds like your brother's still trying to retain a bit of faith in the liars. Once you've established that they've lied once, do you then say, well, what about this and that? Was that a lie too? Well, you could go around poking around everything they've ever said to inquire about whether or not it's a lie, but you're essentially still hanging around the person that's lied to you and trying to appeal to other things that they've presented to you. It's like once you were appreciative that some of it is, as you describe it, or from his cognition already, on a green screen, on high wire, definitely not as reported to be, then that's it. It is that you can either draw a line under it at that point or you can't. If you can, then happy days, because you can move on. You won't continue to appeal to their proofsies anymore. But your brother's just at that stage where he still wants to say, well, surely not all of it's a lie. You know, you can't help that.
I addressed this matter to the caller here earlier by posting the picture of William Shatner sitting with his back to the camera, looking out the windows and pondering for the first time. This isn't him, Captain Kirk in the movie. This is William Shatner, supposedly higher than most people will ever imagine getting. Have a clear view of what we all are talking about. Is the Earth a ball or is it flat? It shows him with a beautiful picture with his back to us, like he is Captain Kirk sitting in the captain's chair, looking out this great big window. And the first thing you would think when he gets out of the capsule after landing would be, you know what? Let me settle the argument. I was up there. I saw it. The Earth has curvature. Not one peep, not one breath. Just something we all want to see that we can't see here. That doesn't work with the math of 3951 mile radius. Thank you, Black Swan. It's not geometric. He has the chance to go up there, see it, come back and tell everybody, all his fans, I was there. It's the one thing I've always wondered, because it's, you know, refraction. Sometimes people think they see it, but from up there, I saw it. No, he didn't say that. He said, Mother Earth, the blue line is fragile. We got to save this planet. All a show.
He didn't go up there.
Yeah, but
this picture's taken on a stage. Same stage he was on the wires with the other guy. Same stage.
Yeah, but it's just pre-assumed, especially with the use of the word planet. Just pre-assumed. That's how they're working it now. So that it's in the language. They don't mention it because they just, you know what I mean? Because they know it's a globe.
No, but all the other rocket launches prior to this, they came down saying they saw curvature. This is the first time I've never seen it highlighted. That was the key. And why would you use this famous captain of space movies and he wouldn't mention it? Are you kidding me? Something else is up here.
Yeah, because the other ones couldn't prove it.
Well,
when they came down to it, they couldn't prove it.
It's about not talking about the dancing bear. Like, they don't want to talk about the dancing bear, right? Have you ever seen that trick that you can do on your eyes and you count the guys passing the ball and you miss the dancing bear in the video? That if he addressed the curvature issue, then it would be an issue for people to discuss.
Exactly.
Admiral Kirk. Yeah, exactly. What better spokesperson can you have than Captain Kirk? But he didn't. Admiral Kirk. But you know, it was very curious. Mind of mine says it was left out on purpose. But what took its place? The next thing coming: climate change. Get ready to be taxed, boys. They're going to save the earth by taxing you. Give me a break.
Yeah, that's what me and my brother we were talking about. We were just talking about that with the whole Great Reset on how they're going to establish carbon credits or social credit scores, and that's one of the ways they'll be doing it. Is once they have people quote unquote being sent up to space, then they'll come out with this rhetoric of what we need to save our
The
planet.
thing is, right?
Same thing that Shatner
The
said.
thing is, how do you get people addicted like a drug dealer? You give out all your stuff for free, don't you? You give them all the technology, you give them the cars, you get them used to what they all needed, you get them all reliant on the nice luxuries, get them all addicted to all their life, and then you pull the plug on it all, and say, oh, well, no, now you have to get your COVID bans, you have to get your passports, you have to do this, you have to do that, and if you don't do it, you don't get paid basically, and if you don't do it, someone else will pay someone else to do it. So now they've basically got everybody taking mandatory things and doing everything that they're supposed to be told. It's a complete control.
Stop. Can't discuss this here.
All right, so
that's just not my rules. I want to publish this.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, pardon me.
No, we're talking about the nature of Earth, and we're talking about does the Earth have curvature? And at that level, at that height, with Captain Kirk sitting down in his captain's chair in that one photo, perfect opportunity, but it doesn't mention it. So use your mind. You know where this is going.
Yeah, but just to read between the lines on what I'm about to say and don't expand on the subject, right? Because I'm going to use metaphor in regards to what Tommy's just discussed. So we were talking about being conned. If you encounter a con artist, one of the worst things you can do while they're in the middle of a con is try and expose the con while it's in progress. After the con has been fulfilled and everyone's bought the suspension of disbelief periphery that was leading up to the con happens, and then everyone accepts it. If you point it out after the con, in other words, in my analogy earlier, once you've got the suitcase and have accepted the story and the locks have been pressed down and the combination's been changed and you're walking off with your suitcase, at that point, if you literally at that moment, if somebody happened to walk by, so you watch the whole thing happen, you know what's been going on, and you go up to that person who's holding their new suitcase and you say, "You've just been conned," the most likely outcome at that point is that that person will try and defend their decision to you, who's trying to convince them that they've been conned. Yeah? In other words, the trick, the con, has set. It's worked. And then at that point, we're like we are in Flat Earth. Most people don't want to be told that they've been deceived. Pride, right? That's the worst possible case scenario. What you mean to say that I had the wool pulled over my eyes with something so monumentally obvious? Nah, that can't possibly be the case. Well, when you're holding on to a suitcase of 7/6R, yeah, you try and convince that person that they've been involved in a con. They'll say, "Nah, I know that guy. I've been
7/6R.
Well, they've been dealing with this guy conning them for the last 3 weeks. He's a really good friend. I've been to his house." It's like, until you can actually drag them to the house and show them that no, it was rented. He didn't really live here. He's fled the state. He's no longer even around. You're holding a suitcase full of 7/6R. You thought you had refraction. No, you've been conned. But then you've really got to convince them at that stage. However, if you walk over while they're switching the suitcases and go, look, what you thought you were getting, he's swapping with the suitcase. That person, it's a good chance they'll pull out a revolver and shoot you in the face. They'll be absolutely furious with you to the point where they will want to destroy the very essence that is your life if you try and interfere with the con while it's in progress. So, for that reason, there are certain rules and regulations that basically say, in YouTube terminology, don't fuck with cons while they're in progress. Are we all understood in terms of this? What are you screaming for?
You said con, Captain Kirk. Con!
You have the con.
Very nice. Very nice, Neil.
Right, heliocentrism is set.
Can we please
The
get it
magic
right?
tricks
It's,
doesn't.
it's Admiral Con.
I give way to this
Sorry.
crap pun. My point is obviously less worthy. Or just leave dead air.
Is
You have the gun.
Sleeping Warrior still there?
Who?
Sleeping Warrior.
Yeah, no.
Oh, he's gone. Yeah, well, yeah, that's it really. I think it's there's loads of things you can look at with Flat Earth and how people interpret things. But being on Gen Panda server for so long and arguing on there for long, you can hear the people the same arguments and the same the way they all jump on and they all pull apart. As long as you can't explain everything fluently off the top of your head, they'll criticise you. And when you can do it and you can explain everything on top of your head, then they say, "Oh, you think you're better than experts?" It's just because you're better than them at doing it. Because when I got better at citing the information and presented it better than they did, they just accused me of thinking I was better than Einstein. I was thinking, no, that's not the case. I'm just better than you at this. Do you know what I mean? But that's why they don't challenge you. For example, they don't come on here and challenge you. Because realistically, you just know it better than they do. You've drilled it every day and every day, every day. These arguments are well refined, and every aspect, no matter which way they go, it's going to end badly for them.
I see it as a
But the
badge
fact
of
that you've narrowed it
achievement.
down to not even have an R.
They're phrasing it as an attack, but, eventually you'll reach the dizzy heights of having the entire scientific method ascribed to your name. Obviously, in detriment from their side.
Nathan, your point was well made on the last summary you gave, so kudos.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, don't mess with the con. That's all it is. The only thing I was going to add to that was to say that heliocentrism is a long-established con. The con's set at a societal level. So when you puzzle yourself over, well, why would they not just censor you? It's because they probably sit back at us and go, yeah, whatever. That's not going to make any difference when every single person, without us asking to, will just talk about how they're on a sphere and believe they're on a sphere, carte blanche, with very little effort. It's not like it's a new con on the block. It's been around for a couple of 100 years minimum, I would say. Might be maximum, though. You never know.
No, it's a very good point you bring up, because I have relationships, friends of mine, who will see the con in other areas, other subjects that are not a couple of 100 years old or longer than that. When it comes to the nature of the Earth, all of a sudden, this person who uses the same criteria to judge that other con is now not using that same criteria to judge what I'm saying is a con, which is the nature of our Earth is not what they tell us.
Yeah.
And I said, wait a minute. Well, go on.
I was going to say, you can feel very proud if you spot a con in progress. Oh, I spotted it. I didn't get duped. But the moment the con's set, suddenly you've got to convince the person that they've been conned in the first place.
Yes, and that's what I said to him. This is great conversation now, because you opened up what actually takes place. Hang on, I had a call coming in. Sorry. Yeah, you open up what actually takes place in real conversations. It's pride. The pride gets in the way of this con. For whatever reason, it doesn't in the other con, but it does in this con.
If you ever watch any of the scammer shows on YouTube where they're talking about people who get duped by people in scammer calls and phone calls that are trying to do advanced fee scams and various other things, one of the things that they'll point out is that they pull from a database, and one of the best databases these con men can pull from is the database of people who've already been scammed. Because they will be the most difficult to even convince that there is a scam to fall victim to. They couldn't possibly have fallen victim to anything.
Yeah, exactly. No, at the end of the day, with my own personal experience with my good friends and their acquaintances at times, but mainly with my good friends, respect, you know what you're talking about, 10th man, blah, blah, blah. And then I bring up this, and it's all of a sudden, you don't know what you're talking about, no respect. I'm using the same criteria for logic and judgment. Why can't you?
people who are trying to con someone, and Nathan said, they get very angry if you get in their way. They do, because then you out their true nature. So if they're trying to con someone and you get in their way or you expose them, they get extremely angry, because then the persona that they're feeding to the world, whether it be a government or one person, whoever is doing a con, the point is that the persona they're trying to feed to the world has been outed as being false, and they get very angry at that. You know, we all have experienced that in our own lives. In our own lives, with people who are sneaky in our own lives. As soon as you out them, they get extremely angry at you because you've pointed out where they are not honest.
Yeah, they're not angry when they agree with your point. They're only angry on this one issue, assuming there aren't any others that fall in line similarly. But let's assume they believe the other things in the same way you do. The minute you bring this up, there's resentment, anger. Don't talk to him. He's a fool. He's gone over the edge. Oh, hang on. So where'd you get that flat Earth language? Oh, you got that from the internet and everything else, that we're stupid and we feel boats go over an edge, when that's your weakest argument, because you're the one with the edge that doesn't appear.
Indeed. And with that, though, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is a particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!